It is Christmas. Well, it will be Christmas in a few
Merry,
days.
merry, happy.
Joy. Isn't
Merry,
that,
merry,
Ren and
happy
Stimpy, right?
Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, Yule,
One of
Zapadan.
them.
No, I'm sorry, not Zapadan. Not Festivus. That's it.
Is there one
Festivus
for
for the
the flying?
rest of us.
Is there one for the flying spaghetti monster? Because we should know what that one is. Right. Right. We'll do some quick introductions and we'll dive straight into. We can get to some coding. Let's see. Let's see what the button is. There we go.
Alrighty. Do and don't. Be nice. Be respectful. Be constructive. That would be a do. Don't post anything that is adult, rude, offensive, or otherwise against basic common sense. Don't advertise or promote yourself. We know y'all need a job or you're looking for clients. Don't keep spamming the same question repeatedly. Every time we see it, it goes to the bottom of the list. If you were next, you're not next anymore if you say it again. Harassment of any kind is not tolerated. Failing this code, you will be blocked from here, and we will give your name to all the other places that Flutter people go, such as Discord, Slack, 7-Eleven. For those who don't know what that is, it's a little store on the corner. And last, now I can see it. Have a good time.
Indeed, have a good time. Let's do some introductions briefly. My name is Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Lead and CTO at Dev Angels London. You can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott.
My name is Scott Stahl. I am a community lead in Flutter, organizer GDG Cleveland, and I write some code under Good Dog Apps. I think we have
a Randall. We have a Randall here. Randall.
Hey, everyone. It's good to be back. Missed a week. I was in this little surgery thing where they completely replaced my right hip, but I've had like almost no pain since then, and I'm obviously walking with assistance, but I'm feeling pretty good. So I'm having a nice time with that. I am back enough to be the question magician for this show today. I will be off screen for a while, so I'll be backstage. But I'll probably have a more foreground thing, probably an hour or two into the show. So, but it's good to be back. And surgery went perfectly. Like I said, I'm in no pain. I've been walking around. I did 645 steps yesterday, which actually is pretty close to what I do every day anyway. So I'm already kind of back to my normal pace already. So I'm feeling good. I'm in a different room, so the lighting is horrible. I understand that, but we'll work with it. That's as close as we get because this is the room I got for the next 6 weeks. So we'll just deal with it.
It's amazing. A friend of mine also had a hip replaced, and he said the same thing about the pain. They went to give him narcotics, and he laughed at them. And they said, well, isn't it painful? And he said, he had walked 2 inches off of his femur.
Wow.
2 inches off the ball. And he's like, you have no clue how painful it was before the operation. This is a joke.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I thought they were giving me constant oxy and stuff while I was in the hospital. And I said, how much have I had so far? And they went, no, we give that only if you ask for it. I said, what? It was really stunning. And they gave me some to take home. And so it's sitting right here in front of me in case I need it. But I haven't even needed, the other thing they were giving me was Tylenol. I haven't even needed that. I did that like twice during my post-op recovery.
It's amazing considering how much pain you were used to before the operation that you can just shrug this off.
I think also, yes, that was part of it. Is I had some constant chronic pain already for the past 2 years, and that just all went away. And it was like, I only have pain right now, just briefly as I'm making a transition, like first standing up or first sitting back down. But other than that, no pain at all. So I'm sitting here just fine with no drugs. So
we have a couple more guests that might want to give you some things. So Danielle and John, welcome to the stage.
Hey there. So Randall, you got it.
Yeah, I'm happy too. I'll be seeing you all in a few months. Apparently, I'll be able to start going to GDE responsibility opportunities. So who knows? You may see me at a conference sometime soon.
See Randall running down the hall.
Yeah, I'm do high kicks during singing New York, New York, and
Right.
it'll be interesting.
Randall's the only person out of all of us here that I've not met in person. Actually, just thinking that. I think we've met in person.
Yeah.
I'm not
Really?
mad.
How,
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
so.
we have.
Yeah.
yeah.
I know I
I've
haven't.
I only went to one early GDE meeting. I never went to any of the IO or anything like that before getting involved in Flutter. So it's my one outing was a GDE meeting, and you guys wouldn't have been there. So yeah.
Oh, way to rub it in. Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. I think
Hey,
you're
my credentials
GDE
only
on
are
this
3
call.
letters after my
Oh.
name. That's it. So that's all. That's all. I have to
Where's
flaunt my
John's one and I
credentials.
didn't, and I forgot.
I was going to say, you heard that too, right, Scott? I mean, come on. Wow.
Nope, I'm
All
not
good.
one.
All good. Anyway, so I'll be
It's
I'll
there.
walk backstage for a little while, and when one of you
All right.
disappears, I'll join the front four stage again.
And
All right.
I do have a hard stop in 49 minutes. So
And
Yeah.
not to forget, put your cue in front of the questions in the chat, and we'll get to them in shortly,
Oh,
in short order.
we left it before he made his joke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the cue joke. Oh no.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So
Oh.
the queue is part of the question, so they'll be in the queue. See what he did there?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I
Everywhere.
think Simon took him off the stream before he could do it.
Wasn't me.
Thankfully.
Wasn't my fault.
So
you.
I guess John and I should
Or
probably
it
introduce
was
ourselves
Randall.
real quick.
Hey, before we get started on questions, I do have one other quick thing to share. Happy birthday in advance.
Oh, that's cool.
So
Is that a good thing? I always wonder, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because it's like
yeah,
you just get the one set of presents or the one set of like congratulations. You never get two.
Yeah, I can somewhat answer that since mine was just on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, growing up, it was a bad thing.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
mine's on the 6th.
growing.
So
Yeah,
December 6th.
yeah.
So
My
it's
sister's
far
was
enough away.
Monday.
Just yours was Monday.
No, my sister's was Monday. Mine's in early January. So
Gotcha.
at least both of us had kind of the same problem. You know, it wasn't like one kid got
Yeah.
something, you know, because like Brenda's birthday is in August. I don't remember when her brother's is, but her sister's is like, I don't know, Christmas Eve. So yeah, so definitely that problem. And everybody else got normal birthdays and she didn't. So yeah. I was gonna say we probably ought to introduce ourselves, John, right? Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hi everyone. I'm Danielle Cox, and I'm the Flutter lead at a startup called Ardley, and I'm also one of the organizers of the Flutteristas.
And
All
John.
right. Yeah, sure. John Weezy. I am an architect engineer for Microsoft, but do as much Flutter as I can on the side and occasionally as part of my job when I get the opportunity. So, and I do the Flutter Medium and hang out with Randall in all the different places on Discord and other places answering questions.
I have a question for you, John.
Yeah.
The red and black handles in the back, do they control the flutter light?
No, they're for the Commodore 64.
Yes, that is the right answer. Is that a Commodore 64 in front?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a 64. And
Wow.
then there's a mini 64 over there.
Yeah, all you guys have
The
got
mini,
the
I
older stuff.
didn't like the mini. Is it the mini 64? There's a few of those mini ones that came out, and they're just like
Yeah.
It's
It's kind of neat because it came out first. So I backed them retro when they did it. So
Right.
I got the mini, and then as part of backing them on the original backing, you've got the mini for free because the Maxi came out later. So it was kind of neat because you could get up to the TV and just play the games that came on it or games that you put on it. But yeah,
since you
You
brought that
guys
up,
go for the older stuff.
I'm gonna bring this up.
yeah, look at that.
Yep.
So
Nice.
those that don't know, this is a remake of the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. This is the next Spectrum Next issue 2. This is a new one, and it comes with HDMI, all that good stuff, USB. It's interesting though. The keyboard and mouse is PS2, so I've had to buy some of these. I don't know if you remember these like purple and like green converters.
Yep.
I do remember
So I
those.
can plug in. So I could plug in actually a keyboard and mouse that I have that actually works now because I don't actually have any PS2 keyboard and mouse. But yeah, no, this is I've already got software up and running on it, and I'm going to be programming some games on this. Well, for this over Christmas. I don't think I'll be typing them out on here. I'll probably be doing it on my PC with an emulator, and then running them and test them on the real device. I have done some stuff on here, but like again, it's not great like editor experience, to be fair. Like not like a modern IDE. But I did like this. Like it came. Do you remember these kind of things? The binders.
The bound book, yeah.
Bound book. But
Nice.
this is really cool because it if I can find, hang on. It's not only got the sort of disassembly, but also like how screen graphics work and all the different information that you actually need to program the hardware. So not just like how the menu system works, but
they did a great job. I wish the 64 would come with this book. Yeah,
schematics, layout, and also this is really cool. You won't see this, but these are all like the registers and like the different bits and what each different thing means, so that you can really go to town on it. This is cool. This is cool. And then I also had to get this. Oh yes.
Wow.
I can now build ultra fast. This is the stuff. This was like gold dust when I was a kid. Like to learn like assembler. Like you was programming basic, which was super slow in comparison, and to know the magic. And then I'd learned some of it, some of the basic stuff, but actually when I look at some of these routines in here, they're actually really amazing.
I've never really gone into it before, but I've studied assembler when I was in the military. To give you an idea, we had this one homework assignment over the weekend, and we called assembler macro emulation, and then the code that's burned into the chip that it refers to, we called micro emulation. So we had this book. It was this thick, this wide, and this high, right? And you would just flip it over and over, and it had all the code in it that we were using. So what our assignment was to go to a certain part of the code and start writing down all the micro emulation that was happening and trace it out to the end. Well, after 20 hours, a partner and I couldn't even get halfway. So we threw up our hands and said, this is just going to have to be good enough. We go in on Monday. They said that no one ever finishes that assignment. It's to help you understand how fast a computer is. And then they said, go up and push the button, because we knew that's what the code did. You push the button and it makes certain things light up. And they said, get your finger off the button before the lights light up. Even swiping at it, you couldn't do it. So I restrained myself from throwing a chair at the computer after wasting 20 hours of my time. Barely. This is one of my nightmares about assembler.
I thought. Do you know what? Has anyone? Well, I've got this question for kind of John and I guess Danielle. Have you ever programmed assembler or anything like that, where you try and get the most performance out of a really small piece of code? So it could just be like 20 lines of like assembler, but you're just trying to work at it until you can get it to the most like fastest, most optimal piece of code. And there's actually there's an enjoyment out of just doing that kind of refactoring on this small piece of very fine, very, very fine piece of code, right?
Yep.
Knowing that
So to give you an idea, you know how there's opcodes and you get register locations and all that in assembler. When you go into the next layer below, into the micro emulation, there are like 50 steps that go into just fetching 8 bits from the memory and putting them into the register. I wish I did do that.
It's even more now in microcode. And it's all software reprogrammable as well. Anyway.
But you're making me think about when I'm trying to find my old Atari 2600 and my old I don't think I've got my VIC 20 anymore, but I'm pretty sure I've still got my Commodore 64.
That's it. I gotta go find Pong.
I mean, I know exactly what my Atari 7200 is, which was the gaming system after that, It wasn't one of the computers until the gaming one, but yeah.
So John Romero, I don't know if you know that developer. He worked on with id Software for it on Doom and Commander Keen and some of those early games. And yeah, I've been listening to his. He's just released a biography a couple of weeks ago called Doom Guy.
Okay.
He reads it himself on Audible, which is brilliant. So like it's him telling his life story to you, which is a really I've had that experience before. It's really good. But yeah, he was talking about those early days with the Commodore 64 and programming it, and like meeting other people. I'm like telling them, I could do double high res graphics, and like all these like things that were conceptual at the time, like things you'd actually have to achieve, with the hardware.
Mhm.
That you just couldn't just look it up on the internet, right?
If you want to do that kind of performance, still, you can always go into graphics. Between the
quality-
AI and the gaming,
The quality of your video is really quite bad. Is that just me?
No, it's pretty blurry. Lots of pixels.
interesting.
It might be your internet connection. It might be because it's definitely it's not your camera. It's the
No,
internet.
yeah.
It's compression.
You know, we've had issues in and out with the internet for the past couple of weeks.
All right. Well, I think we've stalled long enough to get some questions in the queue. All right, just a reminder: get your questions in the queue now, and we'll get them answered. Do you wanna?
Actually,
Shall
see
we?
if that helps.
Yes, that's cleaned it right
That's
out.
a little better. Yep.
Looks like it.
Well, looks fuzzy as all to me. I reduced it down to 480 instead of 1080.
No,
Go back.
they still look.
one.
Don't get you look blown out in terms of like you've smudged the camera maybe when you're just doing something, but the actual quality's back.
Yeah.
That's the smudge was 480. This is 720.
This is fine. I don't know ask me
Yeah.
what happened. Anyway, back to where we're. It's because we're talking about like old computers and your computer's got jealous, right?
Yep.
First question.
Mine's an i9 12th gen with 64.
Exactly. It's
Big
jealous of you.
DDR5.
You love it on the assembler. That's what it is. Right. Anyway.
How to
How to
manage
manage the
responsive screens. My job. How to manage the responsive screens for an app and web, because sometimes it throws the error infinity size error. That's really not, that's separate from a responsive. What that is telling me is you've got some kind of a layout error going on. My question is, why isn't it being thrown all the time? Or is it being thrown all the time?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing here is you're doing something responsive layout where you're changing the widget hierarchy, right? And you're introducing a part of your layout, like you're using expanded in a place where now you've removed a row or something, so the expanded no longer works, and therefore it's throwing an error. You basically have a bug in your app. There's nothing that we need to solve here. This is somewhere in your code.
Right.
There might
It's something
be
in the layout.
Yeah, there is actually a good page though on the Flutter. We recommend on the Flutter. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Layouts.
Another thing
Constraints.
too, the infinity size, you should be able to track that down to either a row, a column, a stack, a
It can
single
also
child scroll view, and also
Any scrollable.
slivers can do this.
And it's scrollable. Yeah.
I mean, you just basically named everything there.
Well, but the reason is when somebody's asking this questions, they may not know that. It's not like they're asking about FFI where we expect them to know.
So I've posted this link in the chat, and you'll see it on the screen here. This is understanding the constraints. Constraints go down, sizes go up, parent sets position. This is the mantra you have to have in your mind, and this is how the layout system works, right? So the constraint comes down to the widget you're in from the parent widget, as it were, and then it sets its size. It goes back up. The size has to be constrained within these constraints, and the parent sets the position of your widget within itself, right? Anyway, there's a whole piece here. It even goes into like this kind of conversation around the current widget and the parent and second child, and a bunch of other things around different examples and how they lay out. So this is a really good resource to kind of look into, perhaps helping you diagnose your problem. Also, run your app in debug mode, and use the Flutter Inspector widget. It's in the DevTools or plugin or whatever you might be using, and that will actually show you the layout constraints and show you where the problem is.
And Philip did a video on that before he left, obviously, a couple years ago. That is very much about that. It's a fun watch. You know, he got to do voices and
It's always fun.
Yeah.
Was that on? That was. I
It's
seem
even
to
more
remember
fun in
that. Yeah.
person.
Yeah, that was on the
he
Flutter.
did the. He kind of did the back and forth, like is written in the.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
it's sort of like that.
article
Sure.
there.
Yeah,
Let me see if I can find it briefly.
so, and sometimes being a little bit comic can help you remember things. So,
Unbounded height. I don't know the name. I don't know. Do you know if you can find it? Let me know, Danielle, and I'll pop it in the stream for other people.
Yeah.
I did. I think he did do this one here with unbounded height. This might also. This is similar.
that's
This is
probably the one.
the two we're just talking. I'll pop this in the chat. Obviously, don't leave us now and watch that later. Save that link for later.
Yeah. I'm
gonna
guessing
watch
that's going to be the
people.
one.
People are all going to click on the YouTube link, get taken away.
Yeah.
It happens. Right. All right. Let's get back to the next question, I guess.
Next. What are your thoughts on the latest Google announcements about the Play Store? It seems like major wins for mobile developers. I completely agree, and I can't wait for Apple to be in the crosshairs next.
Wait. Which latest announcements am I?
Yeah,
am
I don't know which.
Was that not the
$700 million settlement, and you do not have to do all billing through the Play
Oh,
Store
yeah,
anymore.
the Epic. Yeah, the Epic agreement or so. Yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
have a settlement agreement on antitrust.
Oh,
They got sued for antitrust because they were monopolizing all the billing and taking a cut, and the courts ruled that they cannot demand that people do all payments through them, which means Apple's next.
Well, okay. There's two things that happened here. One was there was a lawsuit where they lost on the lawsuit, but before that even and it was announced, they made a settlement, and the settlement is what's really kind of the big deal, I guess. If that's the announcement you're talking about, if there's not, then maybe we don't know what it is. But
you know why they settled? Because they don't want it going into the president, right?
exactly, yeah. But
This is
then
the
they lost
annoying
the-
thing
Well,
because it could. Yeah, but what we're saying is that this may solve it for Epic, but it doesn't solve it for everyone.
No, the settlement
Well,
was for
they-
everybody. That's the whole
Yeah,
point.
no,
the
for everyone, was
settlement
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
everyone. Yes, this is going forward, and because the Play Store is doing it, I figure it's going to be a very simple matter for somebody to sue Apple and get the App Store to do it. So yeah,
Okay, what am I looking at here? Ars Technica. Epic loss to Epic Games. Two
I
Epic
think
games. Google reaches.
really what kicked it off, at least according to the article I read, was they allowed Spotify users to go through Spotify's payment instead of going through the Play Store, and somebody
always-
said,
which
"Hey,
is always
wait a
the way.
minute, what about us?"
Yeah, but this is it. This is always the way. Like it's always been this kind of thing going on for a long time. It's like they come up with some agreement with another company. You can,
Yeah.
you shake my hand, I'll shake
And
yours.
all
You
of
know,
a sudden, everybody says, "Wait a minute."
and the little guy gets shoved in the corner, right? The
Yep.
smaller customers of a company. But I think the problem here is that both the Play Stores are the only way to actually deliver on those platforms, and those platforms are now ubiquitous in globally. You know,
Yeah.
so they need to be opened up more for sure.
Mm-hmm. So thankfully, that's happening. All right.
Right.
Marco, our buddy Marco, who needs to come on the stream sometime. Have you tried Google's IDX yet, and how do you like it? I like it so far. Can you run you can run the iOS simulator in a browser with Mac for those who need it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have
Does that
not.
work with the plugin then? Because if you're on a Mac running the iOS simulator, is that running locally on your device?
I sealed my Mac in a lead box and buried
These are
it
supposed
in the basement. So,
IDX was supposed to be completely remote, right?
Yeah.
I guess
I
you
thought
can
so,
maybe
yeah.
choose a Mac as your remote machine. Maybe that's what that means.
So so what it is they actually run Apple machines in the back at their end for
Yeah,
you.
that's what I figured. Yeah, that's the other option.
So
yeah.
so you do have a window that pops up that is an iOS. It's an iOS simulator running on a virtual, well, a real hardware Apple somewhere that apparently Google is paying for, because so far IDX is free. So I don't know how they're
Well,
going to justify
It's
that. But this is
it's the
most of
same.
the beta rollout.
This has happened a lot of like CI/CD firms where they'll just buy up
I was
lots and
going to
lots
say,
of Apple
yeah.
gear.
Yeah.
I mean, CodeMagic has been offering this for at least 4 years, haven't they?
For a
All the
while.
browser.
Yeah.
Right?
Hmm?
Not in a browser though, right?
No, and as a back end for compiling.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
CI/CD,
and you can
yeah.
actually and you can shell into them if required. So
Yeah.
but yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Marco says he ran it on Windows in Edge and it works. So,
Nice.
why would you use Edge? Why? Tell me. I
why
don't
not?
understand.
Why not?
Why do you need Microsoft? Sorry,
I
John.
actually no. No, I mean,
John can't
John,
disagree with
tell
us.
us why.
He's obliged to agree
No,
with the
I
opposite.
use both. I flip between. I have Google, Chrome, and Edge, and yeah. So
Yeah.
What I'd like to
typical answer.
know
I use all of
is-
them, so it's okay. I'm joking.
has Edge
Why-
finally? Are
Um,
they finally conforming to the proper standards now, or are they
Yeah,
still
they use
ignoring standards?
Chromium under the hood,
Edge,
and now it
Edge
does.
actually is Chromium. Yeah, under the hood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just annoyed. It's just annoyed. It's just one of those things where it's like comes bundled and I can't get rid of it, and that's the thing that annoys me the most. Apparently, they're changing that again now. Like they're getting sued again or something. I can't remember what I read the other day, but it did to me the other day. I was forced to install Teams. Boohoo. And yeah,
For
by
meeting?
default, it decides to open. I got like an upgrade on it, and it started to open out every link I clicked on in Edge.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? It was
There's some
working my
links that
default
will
browser
open in Edge
before.
no matter what you do.
I had to go into the settings. There's like some setting somewhere at the very bottom that lets you choose default browser again. But I'm like, don't force the user to go from
Shouldn't
default
change it,
browser
yeah,
to Edge, right?
That's
That
all.
I think is the thing that irks me. It's like, no, if I wanted to choose Edge, I'd choose Edge, right?
Mm.
I know. Anyway,
So
I mean, I'm
am I
not
the only
opposed
one
to
that loves
test
my Mac?
driving it.
Am I the only one here that loves my Mac?
No, I have Mac that I use pretty often for a lot of my development.
I like my Mac
Okay, all right.
when I use it. It's not. I think the difference here is just like all the opera. Like you can choose any operating system. They've all got pros and cons. They've all got problems. Like just some of the Apple has many problems. But I mean,
Yeah, and
what you need
Apple's bugginess. It's funny because people say Apple just works and it doesn't. I actually run into more bugs a lot of times and more limitations with Apple than anywhere else.
I think there's a case of there's this notion of like I've seen this before. You can just drag and drop something and suddenly it just magically does something. And you're like, oh, it just works is the answer to that, right? But the problem here is there's no indication to that. Their aspect of UX is, the users can just do what they feel they should be able to do, right? Which is fine. I think the problem here is there's a lot of us, especially developers, that have been, what's the word? Taught a certain way of using a computer. That kind of makes sense. So for the average Joe picking up a computer, dragging something to the recycle bin makes sense, right? To delete something, like uninstall an app, you would drag it to your recycle bin. I want to get rid of it.
Yeah. I mean, but they act like stuff like that is not available anywhere else. You can do it on any operating system. They all do it. They're like, ooh, Spotlight. I'm like, okay, yes, you hold Command and space. I don't have to hold two keys. I press one key and I get my Spotlight.
That doesn't.
Same thing.
Who cares? Literally, who cares? I was just saying that.
And
Like,
actually, the best system is
of,
Linux. We all know that.
Well, I spent all the time in the Unix shell on it there anyway, so
yeah, exactly.
on there. So yeah,
Command line for life. There you go. Problem solved.
right, yeah.
Nuke the UI. Who needs it?
Well, I
green screens.
But when you're using the Windows part of it, they're very much the same in a lot of ways. So but when I need to go into the command line, my Mac works really well.
Terminal.
And I'm in there all the time. And it uses the right direction slashes for separating files.
So does mine.
You changed it, didn't you? Oh, wait, no, there's, what is it? PowerShell or one of the terminals for Windows goes the other
You
way.
got you got Windows subsystem for Linux, so you basically have
Yeah.
Linux as part of Windows now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, problem solved.
And it's funny, that sounds the other way around. It's actually a Linux subsystem that runs on Windows. Oh, am I frozen?
No, just
No.
thinking about it. I mean, a subsystem of Windows is what it is. Linux subsystem for Windows, which makes sense. But
Right.
yeah, anyway, moving on.
Next
Should we go to next question?
All right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
How to build automotive connecting apps using Flutter? Is it similar to Flutter Web? I have not worked with Android Auto, but I know a couple people who have.
Right.
I'm assuming you're talking Flutter embedded at that point.
Well, I mean, okay. So first of all, automotive connecting apps.
There's an Android system in there.
What are we missing with that phrase? Because it's capitalized like there's something special.
Like it is something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because that's, as far as I know, it's just running Android in the dash.
Well, no, what we're trying to say is there's like, so for example, you can build an app that connects like a Bluetooth dongle that's plugged into like the diagnostics port in your vehicle, and you can read off the current speed of your vehicle and various sensors, see how bright are the lights on, how bright your lights, and all sorts of information out of your vehicle. And bam, you can just do that, right? But I don't see how this is anything to do with automotive would be similar to Flutter Web. So that's why I'm also trying to understand the confusion here. Does it just mean Flutter? So I think maybe Madhan, if you
need more info. Maybe it just means
more info.
Similar to how you can build a Flutter app and run it on the web. Can you build it and run it on a
Of course, if it was working on Android Auto and doing a bunch with that.
So I mean, there is this thing, right? You can actually, like, for example, we've seen people with Teslas. They have the web browser. They can access content and do things through that interface, right?
So he says he wants to.
He
follow up. I want to create an application for a car.
Mm-hmm.
What car?
I want to create an application for a car. Yeah, I mean, like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. I think the problem here is understanding like where it's not really about wanting to build an application for a car. I mean, yes, you can do that. I mean, people do that all the time, right? The question really is like, what are you trying to achieve by doing that, right? Like, are you trying to run it on your vehicle? Are you trying to run it in your phone to connect to your vehicle? There's, and also, what vehicle you're running, right? That's the other thing.
Yeah, right. Because what's available on the vehicle for you to connect to, and install the app.
I remember when Rody did stuff on his Tesla. I wonder what that is. Yeah. Maybe we can see about getting one of those people on here that's done something.
I think it's still quite an effort going around that, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a couple options on the Tesla site, at least, using some of the APIs and stuff that they've got.
So maybe we can see if one of those can come on one of these weeks.
Yeah. My suggestion is just look up Android Auto, because odds are I'd almost be willing to bet that it's running some form of Android. And if you build for Android, then the next question is just how do you get it installed?
See, I found a blog post actually that mentions Flutter and this exact phrase, automotive connecting apps. Should we bring this up?
Yeah. By the way, you didn't hear it from me, but if you tear the felt bottom off of your Nest Hub, there is a USB-C connector in there that you can use.
This is all around, like, why BMW and Toyota prefer Flutter for building automotive connecting apps. But it's like, when I hear connecting apps, it's like apps on your phone that connect to a car.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Not necessarily a program or app that runs on the actual vehicle. When was this from? When was this from? 13th of December. Recently.
Of this year?
That's a
Yeah,
good
it must
question.
be because it's it must be because if you scroll down, that graph has 2023 data in it. Oh no, it did 2021. So that's got to be old.
Well, maybe. Single code base.
Is there-
Yeah, I mean, this is just like the usual. This is how nice Flutter is, and reason why you can use it to build apps, right?
Yeah.
And we know that BMW and Toyota are using it.
Yep.
George is out in the audience. And he is making a slight correction, which I was thinking the same thing, Scott. Android Auto is like the is what I would run on my, it's how my phone kind of connects to it and does stuff runs apps off my phone. He thinks you're talking about Android Automotive OS. So
There is, you've got Android Auto. They'll let you, again, it depends on what your vehicle's running, right? Like to what you can use on it. But yeah, if you've got like Android Auto or Android Auto, they got a couple of different names. Android Auto OS, is it? There's two different ones, right? Anyway, yeah, you can send custom layouts, and there's packages for that, but there's already APIs for that. So to communicate with that kind of thing, you would be using either using existing plugin or make your own plugin to interact with the Android APIs to interact with the automotive interface. And I've done that, and it works.
And Bottom actually says he thinks Roman's done something with his Tesla. So maybe we can get Roman. Roman, we could definitely get come on.
Yeah, Roman likes to try and put Flutter in anything.
Refrigerators.
Oh, yeah.
That's Pixels.
We need to get back on the name tags.
Yeah. That's Pixels.
He's trying, yeah.
Yep.
But hey, George.
Some things that don't have pixels. Just make the refrigerator light flash in Morse code. All right, moving on. What is your advice on how to start a Flutter community in your city? Two things, being involved with GDG. And Danielle, see what you think about this. Number one, a Flutter community organization really is, or a Flutter community meetup is really nothing more than a meetup that people decide to have for Flutter. And as far as getting it started, this is something I need to do more of, make more time. Go out to other tech meetups and tell them you exist. People are not going to show up if they don't know you're there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You need to do promotion definitely of your meetup for it to get it known, get people interested. Again, like as Scott was saying, I think if you find out if there's a GDG in your local area, and then just speak to them about doing more Flutter content. You make the Flutter content. You promote and do the presentations around Flutter content in the GDE stuff, and then you can break off into just doing a meetup just around Flutter stuff when you've got a user base, as it were, as when you've got a crowd that wants to turn up, and keep expanding.
Another thing too is make sure that it's harder in some areas than others. I'm in an area that wants all web and AI and crypto content. I'm waiting for John to start talking like this.
John, maybe unplug and replug your camera or something.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Max headroom. Yeah.
So Scott, I mean, the big problem I've always had is finding a place. Do you have any suggestions for that? Or is that?
Oh yeah, I hear about that at the GDG summits, and it boggles my mind. Because I've never had any problem finding a venue at all. But the trick is that you have to be willing to let someone from a staffing company or basically a staffing company or a headhunting company to come in and say, hey, we have jobs, call us up, blah, blah, blah. Because if you let them do that, they will give you a venue. They will often pay for your food. Because what they want is to be able to hire some people from your group. And what a lot of people don't realize is that if you get hired at $100 an hour to do a contract, even if it's for only 3 months, they are also getting $100 an hour. They're taking the money that they get and splitting it with you. That's how much that's worth. I mean, just one day's pay is $800. They just paid the expenses for an entire year. So yeah, they will kill themselves to allow you to bring developers to them. And then this way they don't have to run around finding people.
There's, as I said, there's also like, speaking to, again, GDGs, they've already got meetups, they've already got things going, which can also help, help work with them. Another point that we've had some good luck with is educational centers. So universities and colleges and things like that, where they already have recording auditoriums, they already have the setup that's needed to do presentations. And a lot of time, they'll just say, can I, students come along for free or that kind of thing, and they get as many tickets as they want. So basically, you're putting a show on for the students, but at the same time, outsiders can come in. That's that kind of.
And they will, but what I've noticed in the U.S. is they won't even talk to you unless you're a student. All you need is one student to make the request.
I think. Yeah, I think there's so what we've had is because you've made that, maybe that's the initial request, but once you've got a relationship, it's they know what they're getting into, they know what they're expecting. It's all good. Yeah, hopefully that helps, Smitho. Yeah.
Alrighty. That's an interesting. I'm hoping that's it. Yeah. Okay, good. Let's see here. Sorry, I was just reading something real quick. Hello, actually, they've been talking about this an awful lot in chat.
Yeah, I think he answered.
So I'm not sure we don't have, and I'll leave it starred, but I don't know that we can even add anything.
Randall's giving me
Randall's waving.
Yeah, Randall's saying no, it's all good. There you go.
It's all good. Okay,
Next
so
one.
we will unstar that one and move it on. I can receive data from a web view to Flutter, but how do you send data from Flutter to the web view?
Using JavaScript. There you go. So I think a lot of people. Okay, so always when communicating with a web view, it's always been done with URLs by default. That is, you send a URL that contains a JavaScript colon embedded JavaScript, and that way it just runs that as if you typed it in the console on the web view. That's kind of like how it's always been done. There are interfaces now for running JavaScript. I think it's like a Load.js, if I remember right, or something like that. You can now do, and it will just take your JavaScript source and run it inside the browser, and that's how you do it. There you go, simple as that. And then on you can also set up interfaces so that you get the callbacks from the web views and JavaScript interfaces as well.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Is it okay to call run app twice?
Yes.
Yes. Randall has a video on
it. So the point here is, yes, it is. You're basically just replacing the root widget with the new widget.
The next question though is why?
Yeah, I was gonna say the problem I have with this, and I've seen this done a few times, is that let's say during main you do run app my splash, then you made it asynchronous, you do some work whatever with the server, and then you do run app with my app. If that code crashes at any point, they're going to be left on the splash screen. You're not reacted to the user. You're not told them that there's an issue. You haven't given them a way out. And every time they start the app up, it's just going to keep crashing, probably. So it's probably you need to think about it as going a level deeper. That you can wrap your app in multiple levels of widgets higher up. You can do a lot of things to get into a situation where you're loading the splash and then swapping out the UI. You just need an if statement in your build. If still showing splash, show the splash screen widget. Else, show the material app with all my other bits in it. Done. You don't have to make it complicated.
All right.
There we go.
Clearly, don't copy that. It's in the chat.
No, that's the wrong link.
No, that you gotta, and it appended the opens in a new tab at the end, which you have to take off.
Yeah. I'll do it.
Well, it's not like they're Oh yeah, after the.
I think that it's a bug in StreamYard.
Yeah.
I need to tell them about that.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry.
Next.
Wrong button. All right. In Dart, have you come across situations where you need to handle memory directly instead of leaving it to the engine? I haven't, but that's something you could do via
Yeah.
FFI. Maybe.
Yeah, no, but like I'm going to say I've used FFI, which means you're handling the memory directly. But that's the only, like,
Why
I
would
think
you
it depends
need
on
to?
what you're using the memory for, like what you mean by this. But for you always have to handle the memory directly when you deal with FFI because you can't. It's used externally, so it can't be garbage collected. It can't be known when the external app no longer needs to have access to that memory, so that you need to be able to clean it up when it's appropriate for the integration with a third party library. That is when it says you should, basically.
Nightmares of C.
Right,
Indeed.
but that would fail the in Dart part of that. If you're doing
Well,
FFI.
no, because you allocate it in Dart and you free it in Dart.
Okay.
You're
Right.
using it
What I'm just
via
saying.
Dart.
What I'm just saying is, yeah. Again, like I don't know if I can't think of a situation where I'd need to handle memory directly. I mean, you might create things like you can create buffers, like uint8 lists and fill them with data like bitmaps.
We can do
I mean,
so
I
many
don't-
things in Flutter. The ideas are endless, and a lot of them are bad.
I think the question is, what do you mean by handle memory? Do you mean instead?
Yeah.
Do you mean like not use garbage collection?
Well, I mean, Dart doesn't have a malloc and a freer, does it? I mean, right?
It does.
It does.
For FFI, yeah.
Okay.
It'll call
Wow.
it'll call the operating system's malloc and free functions.
Nice. Okay, I did not know that.
Add the FFI package, and you get malloc, and then you get
Okay.
Could you
malloc.free.
define that for people who do not know?
Sorry. So for those that don't know, malloc is memory allocate. It's
Yep.
it's a system call function that's been around since the early days, and it's the standard function for allocating memory on a computer.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of schemas of memory. So I won't bore you with the details, but you should go look this up if you're interested in computers. And that is, go look up stack memory and heap memory. Heap memory is what malloc uses. It asks the operating system to give it a slab of memory. That's like 4 megabytes, a gigabyte, whatever it is. Gives a slab of memory, and they would start the allocator, that is malloc, will start chunking it up into little bits that as you need it. So you need enough memory for a string of 10 characters. It will just give you the memory for 10 characters, and so on and so forth.
Turks might be an old timer too, because he's mentioning calloc as another version of that.
Oh yeah, which will clear the memory as well as allocate. GE malloc. I remember when GE malloc came out for Fire. Well, I remember it came out with a paper. I also remember when that was added to Firefox, and it actually sped up Firefox tremendously because of the allocation scheme. And it's like, yeah, I mean, for those that probably don't follow on, all this is handled for you by the garbage collector in Dart, right? So Dart itself uses malloc under the hood, and will use its own allocation system
Yes,
for
but
managing memory.
is it being used by Young Space Scavenger or Parallel Mark Sweep?
Both. It's all used. But the point here is the whole reasons of having sort of the lookup of references and doing cleanup and Young Space Scavenger and such like is that it will work out if that memory is no longer being referenced by an object in Dart, and if it no longer is, they can free that memory. So when you create a new instance of an object, under the hood, the Dart runtime calls malloc to give enough memory to hold that object in memory, and we'll do all that for you. So you don't have to think about memory addresses or references or anything. That is a garbage collector's duty. All right.
And if you're totally lost in all of this,
sorry, say again, Daniel.
oh, go ahead, Daniel.
I was going to say, I was talking to Boolean from the chats there. He's saying college C flashbacks, and I'm saying that was the first 20 years of my career.
1994 is when I ran into this. Now, for those who are thoroughly confused, I can break it down into a very, very simple phrase. All you have to do is remember it's like your mother. Okay, clean up after yourself, because the only thing that's self-cleaning around here is the cat.
It's kind of interesting that you say that, because it's one of those principles that I think I've taken to heart in all the program I do. Is I make sure that whenever I like set something up, I don't know, like initialize something, I always make sure there's a way of cleaning that up. Like there's a matching way of doing that. You don't just create stuff and just throw it away, because You can, and it's so easy for a programmer to do this. Is just you keep growing, and you as your software runs, it keeps growing and making more references and more links and more stuff and everything else. And you're like, that is a memory leak. Just because you have a garbage collector doesn't mean you don't have a memory leak. You still have to clean up after yourself. It's just you don't have to deal with the raw memory allocations. That's all the difference is, right? So, yeah.
Your memory could end up looking like my desk.
Just be cautious that you add a listener, you remove that listener, you pair things up, things like that. Doesn't matter if you call dispose or whatever else. You might have some other reference somewhere else you're not seeing. Just clean them up to yourself, and you'll be fine. There's also tools. Just want to say that there's also great performance monitoring tools in the dev tools for Dart, which let you actually see how much memory is being allocated and see where that memory has been allocated from, and even go back to the source code which allocate that memory. So there's great ways of actually understanding where your app is using up all this memory from. Anyway, go on.
Very cool. All right, this is kind of a two-parter. Is there any way to make responsive views other than a layout builder? And apparently, what's going on is sometimes the response breakpoints aren't right, which the breakpoints are usually set manually. I'm not sure why they wouldn't be breaking at the right places. I'm assuming that they're not. That they're saying that they're not breaking where they're set.
Well,
I mean,
this is responsive. Okay, sorry.
Right. I was going to say, layout builder is going to give you the width that you've got. I mean, are you not taking the? I mean, is it got a max and a min, and you're not, and it's adjusting that?
Hang on. Are you expecting layout builder to give you the size of the screen, and thereby
that could be
having
everything? Yeah, that'd be wrong. Also, yeah, good point.
Yeah, that could be.
Layout builder only gives you the size of the area your widget is in.
Right. Well, and my thought for the second part of this was perhaps they have breakpoints, but then they're using hard-coded values within those breakpoints. So breaking at 1500 for a tablet, let's say, but then designing their screen for that, and then all of a sudden it's 1600, so there's extra space, or the other way around, it's a little less.
Yeah, the layout still needs to flex.
Right.
I mean, the point here is layout builder is a last resort. You should always think about layout builder as a last resort. Unless you need to actually change your widget structure, there's no need to use layout builder.
Well, and this is what they're asking, though. So they're asking for things like fitted box, fractionally sized box, expanded. How would you use all those things in order to accomplish the same thing? And also, though, there's a time, and I do have to disagree with you about one thing, Simon. You usually jump all over media query, but you did say there's one right way to call it, and I'm thinking it might need to be called once, so that you can store the screen resolution.
No. It's using mediaquery.of and not mediaquery.sizeof or mediaquery.viewpadding.of. There's the problem here is that using mediaquery.of means that any parameter change inside of mediaquery will cause your entire widget to rebuild the context that you registered. So this means that when you resize, for example, on a browser and desktop app, everything just rebuilds, which is just a nightmare. And your app reacts poorly when resizing because you just told the entire app to throw away everything and rebuild everything on every small change of the resize. That's just one example of where that can go wrong, right? Yeah. The point here is register for you only need to register for your context. You only need to register for what it listens to, basically.
So basically, each parameter has its own of function, or a number of them do.
Yep. Yeah, they do now. Yeah. Using you obviously didn't watch my talk at FlutterCon.
Did it talk?
But that's my FlutterCon talk covers that.
There is I'm trying to find the link, but there's a good Google Code Lab on developing an app for large screen.
Yeah,
that shows you how to do a lot of this stuff.
Just going back to that point about response, so we can have a play around. I would really be interested to understand what you're trying to achieve. Like, what type of responsive type of layout are you trying to get to? Like, do you have a master detail? Are you trying to have one thing disappear when you screen gets smaller? I mean, what are you actually trying to achieve here? Because these make a difference to the decisions you make about how you build a responsive layout. There's no like magical make this responsive, right? Like your decision about how your app is responsive is the whole point of building it responsively, right? Yeah.
But we did name some other things that you can use, such as when we mentioned in the beginning, expanded, fitted box, fractionally sized box.
Yeah.
There
of
are a
course,
lot.
but I mean, like, use all the widgets, right? Like, that's not the point. The thing here is that, like,
except layout builder. No, I'm kidding.
It depends on what you're sort of building. So to be explained, to want to explain this point, the whole point about layout builder is that by putting that in there, that builder, the builder function you have in layout builder, is called every single time layout was called, which will happen when you resize the window again. It's the same problem, underlying the same problem. The point here is that you're basically lifting out you're putting layout. There's three phases that happens when the UI is built. It's you build the widgets, your widget tree is built, that calls all the builder functions. Then it is laid out. That's where it traverses the tree with those constraints that we just talked about earlier, and actually builds the elements and then assigns sizes to all of the various widgets and their positions and such like. That is layout. And then it then passes over the tree again. This is for the render objects. This is the third tree, and actually tells it to paint those widgets onto it and get the instructions for painting those widgets, the display lists, and builds it up and paints it on the screen for you. These are the three sort of sections. So what you're doing in effect by using a layout builder is saying, okay, during my layout, so I've done my build already. During the layout, I'm going to go back to the build step, do the build, a whole new sub build essentially for that whole portion of the tree, and then go back to layout again. And so you're sort of delaying your frame of graphics each time you do that. In essence, it's complicated. But anyway, the point here is that it's not a good option.
Yeah, and I mean to what he's saying here, right? With I want to make a mobile and tablet view, and some of the widgets would render different. Well, that's fine. Then you have different versions based on the breakpoint.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean the thing is, like again, it's like
again,
how
you were saying the breakpoint wasn't working correctly. So.
Right. But hang on. But this is the point. Like so the point there, which was that question? I don't know. The thing is saying on a tablet or was it on a phone view?
Mobile, yeah. Mobile and tablet.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just need one flag at the very beginning, media query dot size of dot smallest width is less than 700 or whatever, then that's a phone. Now you have a flag that says, is it a phone or is it a tablet or a larger screen format? You stick that in your tree using provider, right? You can have like an enum, is on phone, is on tablet. Now, anywhere in your app, you can go, am I on phone, then do this layout. Am I on tablet, then do this layout. And you're done. That's it.
Yep.
When you're on phone, you'll use that. When you're on tablet, you'll use the other one. No layout builders needed.
Now,
they should have platform being separate, phone and tablet. But anyway. Sorry, Daniel.
I have a little bit of a question kind of related to all this is on my Mac, when I go and if I change my resolution of my screen, my Flutter programs get bigger or smaller. And my understanding is it shouldn't do that. Any idea what's going on there?
I suspect that's more about the fact that it's not getting notified by the operating system, or it's not listening to notification from the operating system. If you start the app back up again, does the Flutter app resize itself back down to the correct display resolution? I suspect.
I don't think so, but I will try. I'll report back next week.
Yeah, I mean, this is no problem. So it's not to Flutter, but just in general. So having desktop apps be DPI, what's the word?
Dependent.
Yeah, independent.
Aware. DPI aware. Yeah, that's the term. So having apps DPI aware where they can actually know what density the display is something that's very modern. In the world of like UI is before everything was pixels. Everything was all done on pixels. And your in fact, I think it was on Windows, I think it was 72 or 96 dots per inch was like everything. That was it. Doesn't matter how big your monitor was, that's what you got. That was your display resolution. All your points of your fonts. I think you go look up how point fonts are calculated. I think it's on 72 dips. And this was like the standard. This has always been the standard. And then up comes the web, up comes one things, and suddenly we start going, oh, we need a way of doing resolution independent scaling, and that's where web came in and a few things like that. And now you can have different monitors with different scaling factors, because now you have like really retina displays, right? High density displays. And now you get these problems with apps where like, oh, they're built for an old version, they're built for pixels, they can't run on a retina display without being teeny tiny, and they can't scale because they work on pixels. So yeah, there's compatibilities in all the operating systems to work around this, and an app has to tell the operating system it is aware of being of DPI, and then not just that it's aware, that it will then listen to those changes in DPI. Because again, it's not very often, and I think this is a very edge case to be fair, but it's not very often someone actively changes their DPI with your application running, and if it does, then it's a one-off thing that they then shut down thing. But there is this thing that actually does happen. And this is a problem where you can try this with Chrome and other things. If you have a display with a higher resolution, a high density than another display, you drag a window between them, you'll see the window jump in size or go smaller because it has to change based on the display it's on. When it gets to 50% over the mark, it will change its size because now it's considered more on one screen than the other. And as a programmer, that it kind of irks you, right? But that is the best solution they could find to solve the problem at the time. You definitely can't like have it like squeezed, like through a tube and say, okay, it's going to be this small on the screen and this big on that screen. It just, the world doesn't work that way, right?
I'll report back on my findings next week. Then.
I'm curious. Yeah.
But it's also possible that maybe Flutter caches it. The Flutter engine.
I suspect it queries it when the app opens up, and then it continues running in that display resolution for the app.
Yeah. But I'll play around with it. That gives me a lot to try to figure out.
If you do find a problem like that, I'm telling you that can definitely be addressed, and it's something that it's the wrapper shell that should be doing that monitoring and actually doing that, and that's the kind of input that they want back for desktop.
I'll report back.
So back to the original question, I did throw the Code Lab link in the private chat if somebody wants to share that out for them. Oh, it looks like Randall just did. So,
thank you, Randall.
But that's a good one to go through if you're trying to do responsive adaptive layouts, to walk through and kind of learn some of the suggestions from Google on how to make it work.
Nice.
Very cool.
All right, we got to get one more in before Scott's got to leave, right?
Yeah, and here we go. What from Flutter and Dart could be highlighted as a less discovered area to focus on in 2024?
I've been playing around with render objects lately.
With what? Render objects?
Render objects?
Yeah, there was that video that came out recently.
There's quite a few. There's quite a few bits of content. I know Roman. Is it Roman from France? GD from France. Is it GD? I think it's GD. From France. He did a great talk at FlutterCon on that. I think it's definitely render objects. Definitely one of the things that people should learn a lot more about. For those, I think we've done this a few times on this channel, and definitely during the Wow Shopping videos. If you want to go check those out, we did a couple of different custom layouts showing how to go from this idea of I want to achieve something with build, doing something wacky with build widgets, then going, okay, this is really complicated and really. If we just take this down a level and go use a custom layout, you can actually do what's called a custom multi-child layout, custom single-child layout. This exists in the API. Taking it down to that level, and that simplifies it. Or then going one level deeper and going to render objects, actually doing that. But yeah, you have to be very cool. It's a different realm, right? So render objects are persistent. They stay around. So you need to be careful about they're mutable in nature. So you have to be careful with your state.
Yeah.
No,
go ahead. That's fine. Go.
I was just going to say, it's as far as things to develop for or types of apps to make, one area that's not very hit yet is, of course, the Raspberry Pi and RISC-V chips. That's pretty much open territory and open world. That is, they come with very small screens. And as we said before, Roman will try to put Flutter on anything. He actually made a name tag that is animated. And we were looking at 3D printing frame for it, so you just hang it on your neck.
Yeah, you missed it at what was it? Flutter Firebase Festival. He did he had a whole table
Whole
of
table
all the
full of
gadgets he's been working, and it's
Yeah.
called like Romance Gadget Corner, and it was absolutely fabulous, brilliant. Yeah.
We should have him on with all this stuff to show
we'll
all the
talk about
different
it,
ways
sure.
of running.
And we can talk about cars if he really did something on the car. One of the things that he did that I absolutely love is he just prototyped a new way to order, where you can watch the order go from your table at a restaurant, like a fast food restaurant. You can watch the order go from your table up a wall.
That's not new. He did that. He did that like 3
He did that a while
years
ago.
ago.
I know. He did it like almost a year ago. Yeah, or maybe a little over.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
But I mean, but that's one of the things that Roman and Philip both were saying is, don't worry about what you can do with Flutter. Figure out what you want to do, and then go look at it. Because if you limit yourself to begin with, you will not come up with anywhere near as many good ideas. We both talked about
that is an interesting perspective, because I think this is an interesting point. When you come from other platforms, it's like, what can I do with this platform? And I feel like it's almost inverse of Flutter. It's like
the list of what you can't do.
I want to
short.
build this, and you can build it. It's just, how do I do that? Like there's it's almost like a difference in.
It's not what can I, it's a how
never
can
the
I.
question.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't see Phillips talk up yet either. I don't see either one of the talks, Romans or Phillips talks up from F3. But when they come on, you should watch them for sure when they hit YouTube. And I had the misfortune of being scheduled between them. So I mean two of my favorite creators, and I'm like in the middle of them. It's like
I think I got to see about 5 minutes of Roman's talk and 5 minutes of Philip's talk, and that was it. Not even that, I don't think. It was
That's typical when you're working. Yeah, at Flutter and Friends, most of it was single track, which was interesting because you did get a chance to see some talks, and I got to watch all of Felix's talk because I had to follow him. So that was not ideal, but I think I managed.
All right, let's get you. I'm gonna call last order on questions. Get your final questions in. If you guys need to go.
Last order went out a long time ago.
Oh we got the last one. We got one left. That's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Is the overlay portal widget a good option for each element in a scrolling grid view? Is it light enough?
We just had a widget of the week on our portal.
So we actually used it in our live coding on this channel 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago? Was it last week? It's 2 weeks ago. I can give you the link to the gists, which actually has a link to the coding. We're trying to do this thing where I link the gists to the exact place in the video where the coding starts, and that way people can watch it. Yeah, it's the name tagging one. Yeah, it's the name tagging one. Hang on, I'll pop this in the chat for anyone that wants to go check it out after, obviously, today's stream. There you go. That should be in the stream for everyone, in the chat for everyone to see. So that uses the overlay portal. I mean, yes. The overlay port itself is not inherently expensive. Neither are to be honest, neither are the port. Neither is the overlays. Each one becomes a layer, and each one is independently rendered. Changing the contents of a layer only affects over an overlay only affects the layer that it's in. It doesn't affect anything underneath. So, yeah, you should be good. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't have a problem with that. Just need to make sure that I guess that because the overlay port manages it for you, it should mean that when the overlay port gets destroyed, it destroys the overlay as well. I'm assuming that's like a de facto standard thing it does. I haven't looked into it enough. But yeah, I'm just thinking about the recycling of a grid view getting in the way of the overlays. So just make sure it cleans up after itself, and I'd say it's fine.
All right. And with that, I have, wrong click. With that, I have a dog that needs to be taken outside and shaken. That's the fastest way I found to empty the dog.
How cold is it there?
Cold enough that there's white stuff on the ground.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So yeah, last night it was pretty frigid.
I'm not sure we're going to see a white Christmas here in London this year. It's cold, but it's just around. It's just cold enough to be really cold and annoying, but not cold enough to actually have snow.
Yeah.
For longer enough, basically.
Yeah.
You know, as far as emptying the dog goes, though, I think some of you may have heard me say this before, but I was talking to Lauren about it. And we have to empty the dog 4 times a day. And I'm just wondering if we wouldn't have to do that anymore if we stopped filling the dog. If you have to keep emptying it, then why do you keep filling it? All right.
Right.
I am out of here. Y'all have a great holiday.
Yeah, you
And
too.
Yeah, you too.
Yep.
Yep.
Merry
we
Christmas.
will see you what,
Hanukkah,
in 2
whatever.
weeks? You said this is
Um,
the
well,
last one of the year, right?
We may end up doing something over the Christmas period. We'll see. If you're not available, you're not
If we
available. That's
do,
fine.
maybe we should just make it coding only.
Yeah,
I'm around
probably.
if you want.
There we go.
I'm
We'll,
right.
we'll get a
I'll be honest
coding
with you.
only one.
I could do a live stream.
Oh yeah,
some
live
else
stream
stuff
of the
like
coding of the game.
that. Yeah, why
There we
not?
go.
I'd love to be around for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're doing like a little like real time strategy kind of thing.
All right. Y'all take care. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy everything else. Thank you,
And I'm
Marco.
probably-
When are you coming on the show?
Soon.
And I'm probably at the point I should turn into a pumpkin also. So trying to get stuff
Alright.
done before the holidays.
There you
So thanks for having me. And
Yeah.
again, I know he's off stage, but I know he's listening, Randall. So glad you're doing better.
There it is.
And,
Yeah,
and, oh, there you are. Yeah, hey. So glad that this got taken care of, and congratulations.
Yeah. 2 years in the making. 2 years in the making.
Okay.
Yes.
And Scott, we should not hit the
Yep.
big red button. Don't
Yeah.
hit the big red button of death.
The big red button.
The leave studio button is bigger than the end stream button over here.
Oh, not
You
for me. It's
click on
not.
the little one in the bottom, but then the big one pops up.
Oh, I see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
See you
Stay away
later.
from the other
Yeah.
red button.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, Scott. Just us
Right.
three then.
And
Yes.
then
Let's.
there was the three amigos. So
I want to summarize what I talked about in the chat
Please.
about functional
Yeah, do that.
programming.
I'm going to step away while you do that for just a second.
So what we discussed in the chat, this is about probably like 30 minutes ago, I think, somewhere in there, maybe 45 minutes ago, is that there are new packages coming in that are doing functional programming. And by that, I mean using higher kinded types like either and option and things like that to wrap values to be able to do monads, which are chaining operations without having to constantly pack and unpack the data in real nice and consistent ways. My current advocated package for this right now is FP Dart, and that's for a number of reasons. One, it's really well documented, probably over documented. Sandro has done an amazing job of really taking you from zero time with functional programming to why would I want it to how to do it in his FP Dart package. Lots and lots of tutorials on it. Really great stuff. And there was an older package called Darts, DARTZ, that had basically been abandoned for 2 years. And that's the only thing that was comparable at the time. There are smaller packages, like just for the either monad and a couple of others like that, maybe an option monad. But there's also now a proliferation of newer packages. Two that come to mind, at least one that comes to mind is Ribs. I've been tracking that for a little while. My concern about these is that FP Dart already has production level, well tested, well documented procedures and framework. And any of the rest of these, for me to recommend any of them, would have to at least get to be as good as FP Dart. And maybe they have a unique thing that's interesting that you might want to bias towards. Like Ribs does a couple of things that FP Dart can't quite easily access, but they have an FP Dart Ribs interface in Ribs in case you want that. So I would say really, if you're just getting started in functional programming, the kind of stuff we do with Scala and some of the other functional languages, and want to use monads, and you actually understand what a monad is, which I finally do, I think, which means I don't really understand it because anybody who says they understand it doesn't really, apparently. But if you want to do stuff with that, FP Dart is amazing. Sandro keeps pushing out new releases every few weeks. It's Dart 3 compatible with tuples being built with records now, sealed
Oh, it is.
classes.
Oh, nice.
It's really it's really cleaned up and mature. And if you're going to do any kind of functional, and he's introduced the do monad, where you can chain a lot of things without saying flat map, flat map, flat map over and over again. It's really rather slick. It really gets closer and closer to as much as we can do in a scalar-like fashion. If you want to have that kind of strategy with Dart, and it works right out of the box, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that was the summation of what we chatted about in the chat earlier.
I literally just had a thought. I wonder if how that would change with the Dart macro programming.
Yeah, parts of it might be simpler because the do block setup was a bit awkward because it had to match into syntax that could be easily accessed in current Dart, and there's some sort of meta constructs to it that are kind of like, well, we'll concede the syntax by doing this, and I think their macros might actually simplify a little bit in the future. Could we have an FP Dart live coding session? If I was prepared to do that, I could do that today. I will not volunteer that today.
Another time.
Yeah, definitely. I could do that again sometime. But really, go look at the FP Dart website. Well, you get to it by going to the FP Dart in pub and then linking over to his website. And there are tons of tutorials from, like I said, from ground zero all the way up to why a task either. Let's see, reader task either is his newest sort of Frankenstein glomming together sort of thing. It's rather clever. It's a way to inject the reader, which is data source, into a task either chain, which is a way to deal with futures and things that might fail. And it's one big, massive, interestingly cool construct. But the thing that's also important is that what FP Dart gives you that you don't get just out of the box is that you can build subcomponents that chain really well together. The output of this task either series is a different task either that can then be plugged into the next task either series. And then you have a way of completely managing all the futures, all the throwings. It just works. It's a really clean way to build composable code in ways that Dart out of the box can do it, but it feels a little bit like you're building with just raw Lego blocks all the time with Dart, rather than having this higher level sort of patterns that end up in the monads. So,
okay, shall we jump on? Sorry, I'm just eager for us to get us going. If anyone's interested in seeing something program or have any questions about what to see, we can do that. But I have some ideas here, so let's get the stream up and working here. Some kind of things that came up during the week that I did some examples for a few people, and I thought I might share briefly. So we had a question around how do tapping outside of your app. I think Randall saw this question as well. This is actually how you achieve that. For those that don't know, there's a new thing called Tap Region. If you wrap your material app, for example, with Tap Region Surface, you can have a Tap Region inside that, and you can say on tap on the inside of this, which would be the inside of the entire app. This is very specifically, Tap Regions do not contribute to the touch and disambiguation that occurs during normal scrolling and everything else. So Tap Regions are a way of tapping into the sort of all of the touch events and pointer events that are occurring within the application without having to have them stolen away from you by another widget, basically. So this is very handy. And if you have a text field, for example, you can now do on a text field, you've now got on tap outside for those that want that callback. And if you want to, so this is an interesting callback. I won't bore you with this too much, but yes, because it's not constant. And what you can actually do is, let's say we had a button next to our text field and we want to have it considered as part of the text field. You can actually wrap this, let's say we wrap this in a row, and our text field is now expanded. And on the right-hand side, we had an icon button. Let's just quickly put one in here. Is this big enough for everyone?
Yeah.
So we'll do something like this. What do we have? Icons dot plus. Is there add or something?
And
Yeah, let's do an add, for example. And so what's going to happen here in this example is that if I tap on that button, it will lose focus from the text field because the button is considered outside of the text field. It'll also get my tap outside callback gets called on tap outside. Right? If I run, I'll run this in a second. We can see it work. So we're getting on tap inside. Let's do it up here. So what you can actually do is you can wrap your entire row in a text field tap region, I think it's called, or something like that. Hang on. Yeah, text field tap region. And what this is doing is saying this text field associates this entire area of the row on the screen as part of its content. And this way, tapping on the text field and highlighting will be fine. But then tapping on the plus will not just to take away the focus. It will not run the tap outside on the text field. Really, really helpful. This is a common problem. Let's say you have a shopping cart program, shopping cart app, and you've got a box we can enter in like the number of items in your shopping basket. You've got plus and minus. When you hit the plus and minus, you don't expect to leave that the focus of the number field, for example. You expect it to adjust the number field. So hopefully that helps explain that kind of thing. I'll run this up actually in a second. Another one, someone was asking around how to do this really cool effect with video playback. In fact, I'm going to regret playing that right now. Let me mute the audio on it because I'm going to hear that blasted in my ears. What's it, volume? Yeah, 0. Is there actually a mute? I think there's a mute. Forget. No, it's just set volume 0. We'll see how far we get. So basically what I've got here is I've got royalty-free. For those that don't know, this is let's see if this plays. This is was a test video that's been made a long time ago. It's open source
video, yeah.
Another one. And this is a few seconds of the beginning just as a test. What was it? Big Buck Bunny is what it's called.
Yeah.
And we'll see that playing over here in the player. And what you see behind it, let's see if I can get this a bit bigger, is the same video. But blurred. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So people are asking how you achieve this, how you achieve this kind of effect of where, the background is the blurred version of the video, and it's simple and straightforward. But I wanted to show that, and that is we just have 2 video player widgets using the same controller. I mean, it sounds weird, but that's it. Because the video player itself is just a texture under the hood. If you actually go into here, it is set new texture from it, and all it is, if we go down to it, is video player rotation. If I can find it, it does build view. Okay, but yeah, build view of this texture basically returns a texture widget. I won't go into it, but actually, I want to see it. See, do we have an implementation? Let's go to the Android one. So look, there you go. One texture widget. That's it, right? And displays the text that you asked it to display. So coming back to this, that means that there's no overhead in running 100 video players widgets. In essence, right? There's pretty much zero overhead and running 100 video player widgets on the screen all at the same time with the same controller, because they're all just going to be displaying the exact same texture at the exact same time, right? So yeah, and all we're doing here is running a little drop shadow to make it look nice, and we do a backdrop filter to filter everything behind that, and then behind that is where we have the original video with a with an overlay of like 40% black here, just to darken it down. Obviously, we could bring that on a bit darker even, and that depends on what your taste is, I guess. But yeah, there you go. So that kind of thing, and nice and simple. If people are interested in this, I have got it up on my gists, and I will pop a link right now in the chat for anyone that wants it. And then back to the tap region, we'll quickly run that. They might run configurations. Tap out the side. Yeah. Let's run that. Yeah, and then we have some suggestions. So there was a question that came in on Twitch. What's this building? Twitter. Sorry.
X,
whatever. And yeah, I'm trying to achieve one functionality using list view, and I need your guidance. In the paginated list view, I need to add one item at the end, and when added, I needed to remove one item at the top. Length of the list view remains fixed, and new items shown. Please help. And this, I replied it. Said, what I think should happen, and then the reply came back in, and the issue with the above approach is that once the last item is reached, once the last item in the list, and we add one more item and remove one from the beginning, the index doesn't change. So the focus is always the last item rather than the next paginated item. I don't know if this person is here, but maybe they could explain more. Otherwise, we're just going to give a quick example of that. And we'll move on. Okay, here's
one of the key things here, I think, and you're probably just about to say this, but you need to make sure that if you're adding and deleting items from a list of rather identical classed objects, you need to make sure they have keys, because otherwise it can't tell the one from the next.
It's literally what I said in the message that I sent him back.
Great minds think alike. Great minds think alike. What is our excuse? I have no idea.
I'm imagining that he's apparently tried that. He said, but we'll try it, and maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
And but we'll give it a go. So this is
you wrong? No, Simon, you're never wrong.
It can happen. It can happen. So here, I just want to show you this. So yeah, if we, well, that's it. Oh yeah. So this is on tap outside. If I tap here, I'm going to on tap outside for the text field because I'm outside the text field. I'm going to on tap inside on my region at the top of the app because I'm inside the app, right? This is what these two tap outputs are. And if I tap in the text field, right, I'm going to get a tap inside, but not on a tap on the outside, right? There you go, right? Which is correct behavior. And if I type in here and I highlight, all this works fine. Let's just clear that log. And if I hit the plus, you see, I'm getting a tap inside still, but my focus hasn't left the field. So I can carry on typing and hit plus, carry on typing, hit plus all the time. And that's how you solve that kind of focusing issue, is a text field tap region. For those that they didn't want to know that, now know, right? Mm-hmm. Has anyone actually entered anything in they want to see programmed or ideas they want to see or anything?
I don't recall seeing anything.
All right, then. Well, I do actually have my list from there is a custom layout thing a problem that happened the other day that I actually wanted to address because it's an interesting layout problem. I will briefly present the problem, and then if we want to go ahead, we could program that, and we'll try the list thing as well. So let's just grab top of this, just so I don't have to do it again, and we'll say let's do that list view thing, right? And what would you call that list view, like auto scroll or something? Are they saying when one item gets added, they want to remove an item?
Right. So it's like a fixed list, a fixed size list that you
Yeah,
can
but
add.
A queue.
Paginated list.
So it's like a rolling list.
Yeah. Rolling list. Yeah, that's it. Rolling. We're calling it rolling list. I like the sound of that. There you go. Done. Right. So I have a.
Then we could have a rocking list next to it. So it could be a rocking list and a rolling
Just
list.
back and forth. You add from
Yep.
one end and then you add on the other end.
Yep.
You add
Yep. Yep.
Back and forth.
In the rocker.
Save me from these terrible puns, please.
And then the UI will constantly be changing from one
Hey,
end to the
And then
other.
and then
you
we'll be
didn't have to
rocking.
have my cue. You didn't have to have my cue pun today. I got booted before I can say it. It's all good.
Oh! I did actually have an idea about making maybe a Chris. I was thinking about. There's no reason why we couldn't build a Windows screensaver with Flutter.
Okay.
Maybe like there's a we could build a quick Christmas screensaver with Flutter.
For quick Christmas. No, make it a Festivus screensaver.
No, I said
Well,
Christmas.
With just a
like
single
Christmas.
metal pole. Just a metal
Yeah, just a
pole.
poll.
Easier to draw. That's easier to draw.
Maybe
You
like
could
have
bashing in the corner for doing
have
pizza
snow
tricks.
and some dashes flying around. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, we can do that. As long as we get it done before I have to go see a nurse.
I think
And I
can
mean
do
that quite literally.
Right. So this was we said we want a list view. And he said about top and bottom. So I'm assuming it's a vertical list view.
Yeah.
So
Or a very
If we've got
wide
a-
horizontal list view.
it said paginated, and to me, paginated, I think he means lazy loaded.
Yeah. Maybe.
Not well, I mean,
Yeah.
you can paginate like a page view and have it like snap to the things. I mean, I'm not sure that's what he means though, but yeah. All right, so let's say we've got how many items? I don't know, 10 items in the list. And each item has an aspect so we can like lock off the sizes. Placeholder. Let's see how that looks. Nope, got my numbers wrong. It's 3/2. There we go. All right. This is using a dark theme or not? No. Oh, it's because we don't have the material. Okay. Well, we do a dark theme and then, which is not constant. Fine. Let's wrap this in a materials we get out. Theme clients. Come on. Really? Oh, theme data, isn't it? Oh, really? Okay. Happy now. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we have a list of items, and I'm guessing we want to identify those items. Now, I guess what we could do is pre-generate like 10 items, give them the data, and then we'll just set a timer up to just like take one off the top and stick on the bottom. That kind of replicates the original, I guess, the original OP's like request. When I add one item at the end, and I need to remove one item from the top. We'll just have it like a circular buffer, just keep moving them around. All right, let's do that. Let's make it stateful.
You could use a
Enzo, welcome.
you use a queue list or a list queue, whatever that thing is from package collection.
Oh, we don't need to go that far.
Okay.
We can just have something like data
Those
be a
are fun.
list.
Those are fun though. You can do push at the front and pop at the end and stuff.
Yeah.
Sure. Or we could just use a list.
Or he's just gonna make his own push and pop.
Yeah. I don't need them fancy packages. I can do it myself.
Who do you think I am?
You're Santa today. You're closest to Santa.
I'm bringing Christmas coding joy.
Yes, indeed. Bringing little gifts to all of us, little packages.
Yeah, there you are. Happy Christmas, and then the index. There you go.
Okay.
It's our magical text.
Well, you don't want index though, right?
Well, I just wanted the text to differentiate the items.
Well,
right?
yeah, but it's not. Yeah, but that's not going to work if we're adding to the end and removing from the front, because the indexes are always going to be 1 through 10 then, or 0 through 9.
Yeah.
But I was going to remove the 0th one and then put it back on the front, so it
Right,
would
but
actually keep wrapping around.
Well, no, because it's
Or
going
do
to
you
use
think it
the
should
index.
just keep incrementing? We can keep it
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, if we do this, right?
Because if you take 0 out and then you put it at the end, it's now going to become 9 and.
Well, that was the idea. It'd still replicate the thing, but we can just do a periodic timer and keep adding to it. It makes no difference to me.
Just increment a global. Use a global. What the hell? Or a stateful value. I don't care. Globals have state. Globals have great state.
Should we say every 5 seconds? Every 3 seconds?
Yeah.
And then call back.
It's so nice being home after 5 days in the hospital because I could get a full night's sleep finally. Instead of being woken up every 2 hours. Let me take your blood pressure. Yeah, right. I think I still got blood, or I wouldn't be able to answer you.
It could be worse, let's be honest. So at least you got out of there quick and it all went well. So
yeah. That's all good. And for the people that joined late, the reason I'm here is I'm well enough to. I got out of the hospital 2 days ago, and I'm well enough that I'm back to work pretty much. Although I'm running at about 50% capacity right now, just to take it really, really easy and kind of ease my way back into work full time.
So if we say remove at the beginning, and then we want to add timer item, whatever, index, and we'll just do like a little, just do count. Just use count, and then we'll. And of course, if we're going to do this, we're going to set state. So I'm not going to do a mounted check in here because I know that I cancelled the timer, so there's no way that this callback can occur after the widget's been disposed. So no need to do that. All right. So now this is going to be data length. And then when we want to display our thing on the screen, we can display it with let's do a very light gray on this. Gray. Let's get that way. So this is kind of a common problem that we see, where if you don't key your data, your sort of first widget is going to get. Sorry, let me just do this. Apparently, I cannot talk and type.
Yes, you can. You do it all the time.
Maybe. I'm just getting old. That's it. I've lost my skills. I lost my special skills. That's it. Game over.
If you're getting old, what am I doing? Come on.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
You're right. You're becoming an archaeological exhibit.
Yep. Just the old.
See us in the museum, Randall. I don't know. Something like to come visit us.
Dude, here's me with my ZX Spectrum. God dear. Right.
Here's me typing LS in 1977.
Oh yeah.
Unix V6, even before the one true V7 Unix, way back in the day.
Okay. Let's see where we're at. Okay. There you go. So the 0 turned to a 1 after 3 seconds. The 1 turns to a 2. But if I scroll, we're not changing. They're going to change their positions essentially, right? Because the data is changing under the hood. But the problem here is that this widget is, because there's no key, this widget remains, doesn't get rebuilt. It gets it gets new data. It doesn't get actually, like, it'll keep cached things and animations and things. It's not getting rebuilt. And as you can see, if I scroll up, we're now on through the timeout items. So if I scroll to the bottom, that just keeps going. No problem. And yeah, if I key this item, which it should be. So, by the way, for those that don't know, there's actually a nice little widget for this. It's called Keyed Subtree. It exists. It's always existed for the fact that you might have a builder or some method where you can't set a key because you're getting the result, which is a widget. So when you have a widget and you want to add a key to it, but you've already got the widget built, you can't, like, just arbitrarily put a key on it. For example, if this was a function, if I had a function here that, like, builder or something that returned the contents, I can still key that subtree by using keyed subtree. But obviously for it actually also has a nice little I think it's called wrap, and you can actually give it a child index. Oh, these are ordered parameters. These are not named parameters. Whatever. But yeah, and then that way it'll use the index to key it if you want to do that. You ideally you do not want to key on index. That is also another problem that people fall into. You want to key on the data itself. So let's just remove that and key our top widget. Again, it's the sibling widgets that are next to each other. In this list view, there's lots of aspect ratios next to each other, right? They're the same type, and because of the same type and the same position of the tree, once we rebuild, it reuses the widget. That's that reuses the underlying stuff. That's the issue, right? So we want to say in here key, and in this case, this might be, I don't know, data, and then something that identifies the data. In this case, we have a string that's unique, so we'll stick that in there. But if you had an object with an ID, you would put the ID of the object from the database in there that makes it unique. Cool, and then I'll make the font also bigger because I think that's kind of difficult to see.
That key needs to be unique for a value within the same collection of objects, right? Collection of widgets. Okay.
Well, so any sibling widget that is the same type should have a different key. Otherwise, if you and they get removed, add and removed from the screen, for example, is a good example when it goes wrong. I'm trying to think of a what is this?
Did we do that one?
A few weeks ago, I had already.
Yeah, so I was just reading.
No, I don't think we did. And if you did, it might have entered my list. You mean this one that I've got in my list here to do? Hang on. Let me just tell you. You tell me if this is the one you're talking about. Oh, why is it paced like that? That's you, isn't it? Yeah, that's you.
Yep.
It's really wide.
Like,
why is it not wrapping? Okay.
Was that the question you're talking about? I have 5 widgets representing 5 different section headers and below, and I have that section body.
It's not the same, but it's similar.
Yeah, and he's saying yes, it is. That's the one you.
Yes. Yeah. It's on the list.
It's on the list.
Right. Anyway, so I think that I know there's not much of a demonstration here really, but this shows you you can scroll when the new items come in. I'm just changing the data. I keep my scroll position. Should be able to. Oh, that's a good point. Will I keep my scroll? Yeah. Yeah. So if I scroll up, you'll see it. Time. I mean, they're only small, right? But if I change, in fact, if I change this aspect ratio and we make maybe 20 and do 3 by 1. And let's restart, get a fresh list. Yeah. So if I scroll down to like the 20th item now, I see it. Yeah. So as one item has been added, new one's been added in. I mean, the difference here is if you wanted to like lock your scroll onto a particular item. So even if new item comes in, you stay on that position. You can do that. We actually did that in a previous. Go look at the gists. We did that previously. There's no need to go through that again. You can do that. Anyway, I think that explains the rolling list stuff. Hopefully that helps this guy out. If I pronounce names, it's going to be terrible. I'll post a link to the gist. I'll pop this up in the gist now, and then it's there for anyone to play around with.
Cool.
We'll get on to another question, and then we'll see if we can get to the other one. I don't think we'll do. Maybe we'll do some Christmas stuff on games next week, and we'll just do a couple of hours of coding or something. That sounds like a fun thing to do. Right. Let me just post this, and then we can do the next one. What do we call this? Rolling list, something like that. Rolling list.
Yeah, rolling list.
Rolling list for today's date
20th. 20th.
Update Q&A. Great things up. Public gist. There you go. That's in the chat if anyone wants to have explore. And then this guy gets his little post. All right. Moving on. Okay. So we'll get to your question just in 1 minute, Adhan. There was a Lauer issue that I wanted to address because it's one that keeps coming up. I keep hearing about, and I want to show people this because it's a common problem. And I actually have it as a question I want to pose to both Randall and John, see how they think they would solve the Lauer issue. So let's just call it magic Lauer for a second.
All right.
Put on my thinking cap if I had one.
Yeah, he's gonna make us work.
I'm gonna make
Simon's
you,
the one that has
work for these views.
Yeah.
Let's grab that, take that in there, and okay. So let's have a piece of material, and this is kind of common in like a wizard kind of like maybe some sort of
like an onboarding or something.
Yeah, like an onboarding thing where you might have let's do an elevated one just so we can see it. So we have like a previous button. And we have a next button. I know. And maybe we have let's have maybe a page counter in here. We'll just put a little bit of text like in the middle, like 2 of 3 or something like that. Right. So it's really simple layout. And if we run this, we'll get something, hopefully.
Eventually.
Shouldn't take 2 seconds, but we'll get there. So obviously, I mean, you guys, you guess what you're going to see here, right? You're going to see horizontal row with the text and 2 buttons, right?
Right.
Okay. The question I pose to you is, how do you make the previous and next buttons the same width?
Sized box.
Without fixed because it's text, the font size will change. So now, like for example, we'll do this. We'll just do.
Instead of a row, could you put it in a table?
Then the middle box will also be the same size.
Yeah, right. I mean, I can also wrap these in. I can also do, like, you know, there's obviously like, you know, we could do expanded, but that doesn't necessarily mean that.
Yeah.
Like, here's the problem: is no. Let me. Now they're the same size, but now the problem is they're massive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, how do we now go? Okay, we want them to take up to be naturally. Basically, in this case, the next button should be the same size as the previous because
the previous, right? Right.
Yeah. How do you solve that problem?
Boxy. Boxy always solves
Oh,
everything.
Marco thinks it's intrinsic width. Okay, so
Well,
let's use
intrinsic is that
That's not going to help because it's not going
no,
to be
because
able
there's
to
nothing. It's not in a column. If it was a column,
sizing something related to
would.
the peer. Anything related to a peer in the same collection is tricky.
yeah. So this is a chicken or the egg scenario, right? You need to know the size of one thing to lay out the other
Right.
thing, which
Right.
basically puts you in the realm of a custom layout. And yes,
Right.
Boxy would help in this situation. But
Yep.
I want to show you how you do this, like how you actually achieve this kind of layout.
So you do multi-child custom layout.
Multi-child custom layout, yeah, that's one way. That's one way of doing this. So let's try that. So we keep talking about these things, but let's do it. So let's call this wizard buttons, right? Little widget, and this is going to have a custom multi-child layout. And inside that, we're going to have our children, and we'll pass in. We'll just pass in the set children. Well, that's kind of complicated. I think it's probably easier just to do like this for a second. Next, center. I don't know, like that. We could even make these like nullable, so like they don't appear or something.
Or make instead of center, maybe text.
Yeah. Label.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we can add those to our wizard buttons. Okay, so now we've got wizard buttons here. Custom multi-child wants a delegate, and that's the thing that actually does the work. And inside children, if you go look at the documentation, it will tell you that each child needs to be identified, and this is how your layout can identify, and that is some sort of layout ID. Layout ID is a widget that just adds an ID to the subtree, just like a key, specifically for layout, right? So in this case, we'll do something like this, and then we can ID the previous, and then we can have another one, and we would say this is label, and then finally another one, and this comes next. So what we choose for allow ID can be any object we like, any object we like. So in this case, it's almost really easy. 0, 1, oops, 0, 1, 2. We'll use an integer. There you go. We could use a string. Call it previous, right? Prev. There you go. Whatever, right? You can do whatever you want, right? So let's use a string. Maybe that helps sort of visualize it a bit better for those people playing along. There you go. Label and next. I also use an enum. An enum's a nice use of something here as well. All right. So now we've got our sort of custom multi-child layout implemented. We can now drop the in. In this case, it would be in place of our row. And then we want to obviously give it the correct widgets for the various things. So we have our elevated button and our text label. And finally, our next. Okay. So, by the way, just a remark on the intrinsic idea of using intrinsic height or intrinsic width in a row or column. They work, but it only works for the cross axis, not for items in the same axis. So we can make the buttons the same height by using an intrinsic height on the items and then wrapping them in a row with cross axis alignment stretch. That's where that works. But you couldn't do the same on the width, right? All right. So now we've done that. Okay, so that's pretty much where we want to get to now, apart from the delegate. So let's go do that. So we want a custom, it's multi-child layout delegate. That's the one. We want to extend this. So we want a class, and we'll call it, wizard buttons layout extends our delegate, and has two functions: should it relay out and perform layout. So there's no extra parameters to our layout. So this is always false. It will automatically rebuild if the widgets change, right? Like it doesn't have to relay out per se. Like it'll relay out because the size has changed, but it won't relay out based on inputs. That's what this is about. All right, so then our layout procedure, let's pop this up here. So when we lay out, we can decide what we want to do. And the end result is that we need to provide a size for each of the children. This always has to happen. So in this case, we want to establish what our previous widget is. So there's actually a get. You can do. No, I forgot. I've even forgotten here. There's functions here that we can call. Has child, layout child. So that's one. And then there's position child. And get size as well, which will get the size that's passed in. So for us, we don't care too much about that, but we do want to call layout child, and we want to ID that child. And the ID of the object, well, that is previous because we use the string, right? And then the constraints that we want to give, well, we want to ask it, we want to give it an unbounded width and a so type for finite, I believe, is the one I want. Small. Oops. Put that on one screen for everyone, right? So this will make it infinite in one dimension, or unconstrained in one dimension. So between 0 and double infinity. So we'll do that on the width, and then on the height, we'll have that passed in as the height of the parent that we've been given. So it's always good to constrain at least in one axis, otherwise it's completely unbounded. Okay, so this is a height constraint. So let's bring this out so we can reuse it. Height constraint. We'll use it probably a couple of times at least, right? All right, so we'll lay out previous, and we'll get the previous size. And we want to do the same for next. The same constraint. And then we want to work out which one is bigger, right? It's nice and simple. Previous size width is greater than, let's just have a, in fact, we can just do it like final button width equals, if the previous size is greater than the next start size width, then we want to use previous size, right? So width, otherwise next size. That's nice and simple. This is just a. Obviously, you could do like if you had multiple widgets, you'd do a loop and some other fun things. Now we have a width. We want to tell the widget, we're going to relay them out and tell them that they are of a particular size. So this is building a new constraint. So this is our the new constraint that we want to call layout as many times as you need, right? This is the only way to solve this with a double layout, right? You can use, so what we can't do at the moment is we're calling the full layout procedure to do this. We can use the intrinsic width to do this, but then to do the intrinsic width, we actually can't do that in multi-child layout. We have to use a custom render object to do that, which we'll work off of right today, but see previous episodes, right? Anyway, so in fact, look at the WoW shopping videos, I think, on the channel, because it's done in there. Anyway, that was for those that don't know, we did a state management dev camp, and a few of the videos were live streamed. They have a different image under the live tab on the YouTube channel.
Yep.
Right. So we'll say button constraint. Now you know. You can call it as many times as you like.
And now you know.
Right. So now it's tight, the size, and then we have our button width, and then the size.height. That's what's been passed in, and then we'll use that button constraint.
Do you want size that height, or you want? Oh yeah, because you're making.
Yeah, it's the one that's used from this.
Yep.
I mean, we could, to be honest, like rather specify it twice, you could also do this dot max height.
Yeah, but that's
I mean, it's much of a much really.
Yeah, right.
Because the one's going to be equal to the other right now, anyway.
Yeah. The problem here is also that this you're getting the maximum, not just the minimum, right? So you would have to disambiguate between max and min. Like
Oh yeah.
Right. Anyway, so now we have our button constraint and we laid them out. Now they're both going to have the exact same size, guaranteed. That is what we told them to do.
Right.
So based on this is the let's take this out and call this button size. Why not? So we can reuse it. All right. So now we've done our okay. So let's break this up. So we've got our initial, our calculation, and then our
Final.
Our next step, which is to actually laying them out, but they're still in the wrong positions on the screen. We still need to lay them out, and we also haven't worked on the label either, right?
Right.
So let's also tell the label to lay out, and I think we actually, I feel like this didn't get the size. Yeah. Let's do. I'm trying to remember which ones are which now.
Can you just use the height constraints?
Well, I
You
was just
already
thinking that. I was just thinking that actually. Yeah, let's do that.
I mean, because really we don't care about width.
So this is kind of where it gets interesting, right? Because the more advanced layout gets, the more complicated you can make it, right? And
Right.
the more situations you have to be aware of. But keep it simple to begin with, right? So, all right. So now let's position the children. So we want to position previous at 1 offset. We'll come back and sort this out in a minute, but let's just do this. And then we'll come back and let's get it running, right? Because oops, what happened there? Did not mean to copy the entire line. Okay, so run that. Wonderful. That's not what we want. We want a let's have a look. Type for finite. What did we do? Oh, we put height in both. Yeah. I want loose constraints. And yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. Okay. So we want loose constraints. And we'll just do the size slightly different here. We'll just say we want width double dot infinity. Height. All right. Save. There we go. They're all up there in the top corner, hidden away. So let's see now. The problem here, actually, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty things. Custom multi-child layout cannot declare directly its size. It's a bit complicated, but there's a get size override that we have to return back. So we'll do this. It's one of the things I actually hate about custom multi-child layout. Let's do constraints dot max width, and we'll give it for the moment we'll give it a fixed height, 48. Sounds good right now. We'll come back to that in a second. I'll explain a bit more about that. But yeah, there you go. So now you see them in the middle of the screen. The reason why that, by the way, just to explain, this was returning back constraints biggest, which would have been the entirety of the screen, so it's going into the top left. Where now we're just saying, okay, 48 height, and therefore it's in a center, and that centers it vertically. Okay. Again, Marco. Yeah, the problem you've got now with that is that the label in the center is now the same size, which is not what we're asking for.
Well, not only that, but if you're on a super wide screen, you're going to have really, really wide buttons because basically a third of each, right?
He's got an intrinsic width.
Oh,
around the row.
Around the
which is fine, but that makes, again, it's the same thing about having three things exactly the same width.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that could be. I mean, John, we'll try in a second. Then why not? Right. So anyway, and then okay. So now we've done this. We want to position them correctly. So let's get some offsets going. So first of all, we want to calculate the center of our horizontal place for the label, right? So we'll have label position or label X. So X, horizontal, Y, vertical, normally. What do we want to put here is the question. Just put these placeholders in so we can get rid of these errors. Right. So label X, which we're going to place on the screen. So we've got our size.width, minus the label size. Well, we don't have that yet, but we'll get that. And then divided by 2. This is sort of standard fare for layouts. Layout chart returns back the actual size of the thing it's calculated. Do you know what? We'll also, instead of doing final on these sizes, we'll override them again, just because. Next size down there. It's good to make sure they're up to date from the first pass. Right. Okay. So, what have I done wrong? Try to lay out a child with previous more than once. I know it did. See.
Oh.
Okay. So this is interesting. So, it is actually throwing an exception. And this is annoying me. So more and more right now, I've run into several problems right now. One is I don't want to be able to force the height. I want to intrinsically get its height. Can't do that with custom multi-child layout. I've asked them to lift this and they just don't want to do it. So there's reasons apparently. Again, we obviously want to use the intrinsic width rather than doing layout twice anyway. And this doesn't have a function for intrinsic width of the child. What kind of bugs me is that all I want to do is have a function that gives me the render box and let me do whatever I need to do. That actually be more helpful than all of this sort of what's the word? Hand holding. It literally has the objects and the render boxes, and then it'll make my life easier. Right. So we're going to convert this to a custom render object, but it's not as bad as it sounds. So we'll do a class and we'll call it render.
Oh, 316.5. 316.5 just dropped 49 seconds ago.
Of course it did. Every time. It's good.
Every Wednesday.
Yep. Every Wednesday. Yep.
Right.
That's why
All right. And this is probably a good time for me to duck out since I've got to head out. So
no worries.
I will see you all.
See how this is solved.
Yeah, I definitely will. I will probably not be joining you next week because we're on family vacation. But if
I
we're
don't blame you.
doing nothing, I may join. But otherwise,
right.
I will see you guys in a few weeks. So
Thanks, John.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas.
See you.
Happy Festivus.
Yeah, for the rest of us.
For the rest of us. On cue.
Let's see. I've just moved the layout down into a render object. This is simply as simple as a render object gets. It's a render wizard button as a render box, and then we're going to do this. The question is, how do we do these two things? Layout child and position child. The way this works is you have to get the render box of the child, and also we have to we can't use size. Size is up to us to calculate, so we actually have to get that from the constraints passed in. So we're going to have we're going to get, in fact, we'll get that from there. So we say constraints dot max height would be the maximum height that we're actually willing to constrain to, not the minimum. So this is why this is a loose constraint, right? Because our maximum would be this, but our minimum is 0. So it's not required to be that size. So let's pop that in there. We want to use that same constraint there. And where else do we use size? Size width. This would be, again, the constraint's max width. Do I see size mentioned anywhere else? Variable? Nope. Okay. And then we'll make a couple of functions up similar to this. So, All right, back to our multi-layout delegate. Get rid of that. And we're going to go back on this. And we're going to make a custom render object instead. So we just extend multi-child render object widget. And this needs, in its superclass, needs to be given the children. And the way we're going to work this is we're going to give them in this particular order. This is how we identify them. We don't use that. We could implement the same thing as layout ID, but then that's just more stuff for us to do. The way this works is with parent data, and you can go get the parent data off the widget. Okay. Maybe there's something else we can explore, and we can talk about that another time. But yeah, not today. We're already getting along. Right. So now we've done this. Obviously, we don't want build, but we need our widgets. So we're going to drop this off. Instead of building our sub widgets, what it's going to ask for is for us to create a render object to display those widgets. That's what create render object does. And we have it return back our custom widget. Now, these children are automatically attached to our render box by the element. And that's actually managed for us by this multi-child render object widget. So this thing, if you look into the element that it creates, further down, multi-child render object element, this thing here does all the management of the children, insert child render object, blah, 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 blah. That does all that hard work. You don't have to look in there. The point here is that's why we don't hand the children straight over to the render object, because these are widgets. What we need are the render objects. All right. Now, if we had more parameters, we could hand those over, like, you know, what color to do something, what animation to use, that kind of thing. If you have any questions, Randall, please step in.
Yeah, I'm watching for questions.
Okay, so we want to use multiple. So by default, a render object is just that it renders things. It doesn't know notion of children and such like. It also needs to know to paint each child and do all these things. I don't want to have to manage that manually. I don't want to have to manage that myself. Neither do you. So we're going to go. The framework has these. I'm going to go dig them out because I forget the name of them. But the framework actually has all these things built in. Here they are. These are the things we're looking for. Container, render, object box mixing, render box, container, defaults mixing. This is what we're looking for. So we're going to grab those. Yeah. Save me from looking them up. Drop them in. And this asks us to put in the rendering system. And then this parent render layout data stuff. We don't need to use that, but we do need to use something that extends a container box data parent, because that is the thing that actually holds the it's actually box data parent. This is the thing that holds the position.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so if we go back, it's this is parent data is every render object needs to give at least a render what's it called, box parent data to its children if it's a render box, for example. So we're just going to create a quick placeholder one for us. We're not actually using it. This is basically the place. This is the model object that allows us to attach a bit of data to each of the children as the parent layout. That helps us maintain what its relationship is with the layout. And
is this what Flex does to be able to manage a column or
yes.
a row as expanded and so on below that?
Yeah. Check this out. So if we go into the Flex widget.
Yeah.
I'll do it from up there. Hang on. I just want to show this because this is exactly how that system works. So if I say, by the way, so we're talking about row. I'll just switch for the people at home. So row is actually a flex, and the flex widget is a multi-chart render object.
Yeah.
And then if we go down in this one, we'll find
it's got to be parent data somewhere.
Create render object, and inside the render flex, when it gets there, oh look, here are the same two mixins with what parent data? Flex parent data.
Cool.
And if we go into that, there's the flex value, there's the flex fit per child. That's it. And then parent data widgets can set those going up the tree. And that's what So that's what those whole things were. So if you go, since we're here and we're talking about it,
It's a way for a child to communicate back to its parent.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
that-
yeah.
okay. All right.
So if I go expanded, if you look at this flexible, it's a parent data widget of a flex parent data. So if you go look at this, it goes apply parent data. Is the render object's parent data? This is the child. This is the child's render object when it gets made. And you can see here, it just casts it as the type it needs because it does the matching. And then that's it. You can just adjust those parameters that you saw inside the object. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can take a look at that. We actually did ask people to post those, didn't we? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, but anyway, so in the sense that if we want to use those IDs still, we could. And all we would be doing is attaching a layout ID. So let me get rid of those two things there. Wrap this with a layout ID. We can reuse this widget any way we want. And all this does is it says it must be a multi-child layout parent data that's going to be setting. So if we go into here and I was to use that, which, well, we are already, then we'd get a free, we'd get the ID basically. So then we could then go look up based on that ID. So the quickest way of doing that is there's actually a get children as list. So if we want to look up which one, we could actually go around the linked list of children. I think there might be a function for this. Should we have a look? I believe there might be. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. So custom multi-child layout, render custom multi-child layout box. That's the render object. So this is the bit. We'll pop that in there as well. This is how you decide on what, if it doesn't have the right parent data to set the parent data. But anyway, so in here we should find. Ignore that. This wants to. Okay, so you can see here it loops around all of the children and builds up the ID to child. So it builds up the ID from the parent data and sets it to child. And this is how it asserts which ones you should be using. So it does this before perform layout on each time, which is fine. But if we want to reuse that same artifact in our own thing, well, there's probably an easier way of doing this. So we'll do a map object to render box the same way. And we'll say what build get children ID map. I will call it that. Pop it in here.
So I can see the advantage in knowing how this works, but also I see the advantage in being able to use Boxy to hide most of this from me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because looks like a lot of boilerplate if I were to do this over and
so
over.
Because again, it's because you're at that level. But again, we talk about boilerplate. Mm-hmm. There isn't that much. We'll come back to it in a second, but there isn't that much. Yeah. It's just about how, because you're at that level, you're at the custom level. You're doing something custom. Well, then your output is going to be whatever you want. So you just more at that foundational level. Anyway.
Yeah, even Boxy gives you only a limited set of options to do with it, but it's the 90. It hits the 80-20 point.
Exactly, the 80-20 rule. Yeah.
Yeah, but the other 20, you're still going to need to know this. Definitely.
So ID to child. Do that.
At least we're not down to the level where you have to learn how to paint pixels.
Yes.
You're still giving render boxes at some point.
So, whoops. All right. So now we've done this layout ID. We can still use those to identify the children. Now this becomes. So again, we put them into named positions. So wizard buttons could go down the route of now of just having children, and it wouldn't matter what order they were in. So we can actually do super.children. We'll do this just for them. I wouldn't normally do this because there is a road. You want to be more specific with your layouts. So probably doing what I had originally makes more sense. But this is a good use case example, basically. So we need to get rid of all these. We also make a const then. All right. So there are ways to do this without this. Bit more boilerplate. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's a long story there. Let's carry on.
You've covered a lot so far.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Let's get to the point. I think there's people
Yeah.
get lost already. So.
Well, we still got a fair number of people sticking in there. Hello, people. Thanks for sticking with us on this Christmas edition. Holiday edition. Can't say Christmas. There are other holidays around here, including my own personal favorite.
I think it's perfectly fine to say Christmas because it's Christmas for us. There you go.
Christmas for some people. For a huge,
we can say
huge
Happy
number of
Christmas,
people.
but that's
Yeah.
what we. To me, this whole thing is just. I don't know, I'm not going to get into that, but the point I was going to.
Please don't. We've seen enough politics in the last few years.
I know. I'm not going to get into that. But it's more about the fact that it's how you take. I think it's about how someone means to say something. How means someone to say. You say Happy Christmas. People get the idea that you mean Happy Holidays, right? You shouldn't have to say Happy Holidays. That's how you take it, right? That's how you know, you don't make an offense by saying Happy Christmas, right? Anyway, right. Anyway,
it's crazy. Don't worry about it. Keep typing.
Right. Previous label next. Right. Okay. So now we've got layout IDs in our children. We can now fetch them in here. So, which is fun. Great. Sure.
Yep.
And we're gonna just so I can reuse the same code. We're gonna just rebuild these functions quickly because they're really simple. So layout child, object key, box constraints. We're doing functions like functions here for those that are
nice.
lost on what I'm doing. And then we want to return a ID to child,
which have to be in the proper order too, which is something I stumbled across when I was first using them.
What's that?
I always thought of a function declaration as being kind of position independent because it was just sending stuff to the compiler, but a function declaration inside another function may depend on other variables that need to be set ahead of it.
Oh yeah.
So that's something that didn't occur to me the first time I started doing that. Like if it's essentially a closure with a name, so you have to get the stuff created for the closure in place before you can create the final function named closure. I don't know if that's a great explanation, but it certainly made sense to me at the time.
So
in the same way that if you had a final A equals something, final B equals something that includes A, they have to be in that order. It's not like you can just throw them randomly in there. It's an executable step in there as well. And then you can have a function that refers to B, but it has to be after the other two then.
So this is actually how you set the position of a child.
Okay.
You get that parent data, and it's called offset. This is why an offset exists in box parent data. This is why every exists here, like, used by RenderBox. Every RenderBox and subclasses must use box parent data as their foundation because offset is required to paint it in the coordinate system.
Yep.
So we get that for free of charge because we're using the existing one. So this is it. Now we've achieved a render object that did exactly what we had before. You talk about number of lines. I've honest, there's not that many here. Like this is the same sort of layout that we had before with layout lines. And when it comes down to it, we've got that function, and then we've made that function. They're the existing lines. All these are pretty much the same lines we already had. So
yeah,
but it is just anyway. So let's restart. We shouldn't have an error, hopefully.
You're so hopeful.
No, that's the old one.
Oh no!
I'm just clearing out the old runnable. Right. So let's restart. See if we get an error. Yeah, we got an error. Yeah. Right. See.
Of course.
Oh yeah, because I didn't set the size. That would be, of course, that's literally why we came in here. So size of our widget is going to be, that's the requirement. You have to size as we said earlier. Constraints go down, sizes go up. Parent sets position. Yep. That's the rule. So here, the width of ours is going to be our constraints max width for the time being, and then our height we'll put as 48. again for the time being, but just satisfies the limitations. Right, let's restart, see what we get.
You really want it to be the size of the three things you're positioning, right?
Size of, yes, we'll get there in a second. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did not implement perform layout.
That seems implemented there.
Oh, wait. It's because I did super. I think.
Oh, you didn't actually implement it. You just called the parent.
Well, I think no, I did, but I think it was the super function was in there. No, this is actually doing everything it should do. It's laying it out perfectly fine. Do you know what it's not doing? Rendering it.
Oh.
And it's not doing that because we didn't give it the render function. So let me go to our, what was it, multi-child lab. Yeah, we'll go here. So there's a default function that we already have, but we need to pass it across. And the same goes for hit testing. So let me just skip down to those. It's these two at the bottom that we just don't have. So again, we're stealing from the framework, but that's fine. This will all go in the gist. So yeah, this just forwards it onto the default implementations for rendering and hit testing. So now, yeah, we have some buttons.
We have buttons in really tall boxes.
Right. Well, we'll get there in a second. But here's the main thing. Look, our label is positioned correctly where we wanted it.
Right, just not the boxes. They're not positioned correctly.
So why do we have... so again, this is kind of comes down to our... Let's do double dot infinity here for a second. I don't really want to do this, but let's just do that. We're not going to use this, but let's restart.
Don't you need to give it the proper starting, the left edge stuff and the right edge stuff?
No, well, yeah, we'll move them in a second, but I'm more worried about the height. I don't know why the height is this big.
Yeah. Okay.
When I'm not giving it a height. So it's because I'm an idiot right here. I forced them to be the max height. All right. So yeah, this needs to be the calculated height. So again, we could do the same thing here. We'll say I would just say button height. I'm being lazy right now, but we'll do it. Height. Merry Christmas. We got Merry Christmas in the chat. Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Right.
And
Okay,
Happy New Year. And Happy Kwanzaa or whatever that is.
There we go. That's better.
Best of us for the rest of us.
Still not sure why that's so big, but we're actually not going to use this anyway. We're going to change this layout code, but that's... I don't know why that's that height.
No.
Oh,
I don't.
Yeah, I do. Because I had width instead of height there.
Oh, made it squarish.
There we go. That's, I guess, better.
Oh, that's better.
Width,
I like
width,
that.
width, height.
Ship it.
Yeah.
Ship it.
Okay, so right, where we at? Let's see. So let's wrap our wizard buttons in a stack. I'm doing this for a reason, just so you can see something here. And we'll put a underneath. We'll do a positioned dot fill, and that's going to have a placeholder, so you can see what space the. This will visually show you what space the render object is taking up on the screen, but not interfere with the render object. So let's make that slightly lighter. So it's like now.
Great.
300. Oh, yes, it's not. Sure. There we go. So it's there, but not in our way. Okay.
Yes.
So back to our layout. Make some room. Okay.
So yeah, my surgery went perfectly well. It took 3.5 hours instead of 2. There was a lot of Mexican hardware to remove, but I'm all American now again. And
Right.
it was good. I'm good. I feel good. I'm in no pain. I just need to do some multiple weeks of rehab now to be able to get back to being able to drive my stick shift car. It's one of my goals soon. I have a 2002 Camaro Z28 that I've owned since day one.
Okay. So we go back to layout now. So we've got so let's go back through our little thing, right? Our little layout code. So we create our loose constraints. We ask the widgets for their width and height. Now, obviously this doesn't really work. So not for what we're trying to do. So we're going to adjust this slightly. We'll make a function here. We'll call it render box. Or say, no, you know what? We don't need that because it's right here. Basically what we need to do is get the intrinsic dimensions, right? So I'm going to show you what intrinsic width does. Ready? It's really complicated. So we need to get the child render box. We're getting that by its key, in this case, previous. And then we want to say get intrinsic width. So we want the minimum intrinsic width. Yeah, minimum intrinsic width, and then given a particular height constraint. Which is
did you catch the typo?
Sorry? Which typo?
I made a typo on height constraint and used max width instead.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. That would probably be why they're slightly fatter as well. Yeah. I was wondering why that was. Right. So this will be our... So get min constraint will give us our width back. So this is going to be previous width. I could say intrinsic width, I guess would be more. All right, so that's that. And we'll do the same thing for the height. And guess what we don't need to do now? Calculate the full layout. This is exactly what it does. This is, for the most part, it calls the right intrinsic function based on the layout constraints. I won't go into, but we know what our constraints are. So what we're trying to achieve and so on. So, all right, so there's our previous, there's our next. So we don't need to do that. And based on that, we could work out the greater of the two. So previous is greater than we use previous. And next. Okay, so that's the width one. Let's pop that in there. Height wise, I'm just willing to let them be whatever they need to be because we're giving them we're going to limit them on the width, and we'll give them unbounded height. Saves us from having to calculate it. It'll be fine. So we'll get the height back when we actually do the layout. That's what this next bit is here. So the constraints that we actually give them will now be not type constraints. I never don't want loose constraints. This is annoying thing. I feel like there's not a constructor, never constructor constraints that I want to use.
Yeah.
It always seems to be the way every single time. So I end up having to just put the all four parameters in. It's kind of annoying. Expand. I want loose on one dimension and tight on the other. And like this, don't do that. Okay, so this is loose by default. So as long as you put min max width by default, then that'll do what we want. Okay. So min width becomes our button width. Now max width. Whoops, max width becomes our button width. Okay, there we go. So there's our button constraints, and we have our sizes. Let's run it. Hey, look, that's the right height now. That's nice.
Cool.
And now let's position them appropriately.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways of positioning these things. So we talked about the label. The label's now horizontally centered correctly. And we could do the same thing in terms of, let's say we want it in the center on the vertical side. We could do this. But then we're like, okay, hang on a second. The height. What is the height of that we actually want? Now, we've put 48 in there at the moment, which is not right. So we need to go say, what is our final height? Well, back to what we're saying, we want it to be the height of the larger of the two. So it's as simple as do that, right? So you can do, there's actually math.max, and you can use that. This is just easier to show people right now.
By now you could have written that like in line and used it 3 times without even importing that.
But I'm showing people the process, right?
Like, yeah. It makes sense.
So when it comes to this, now we don't want to use the constraints because that was passed in. We calculated what our height should be, which is this. So height minus the label size dot height divided by 2. And then the height that we return back with would be 48. So this would be the height of the larger of the 2 buttons, whatever that might be. So restart. Let's see what we get. It looks the same, which could be correct. Or I've got a typo. 1, 2. So label Y. Well, I did put it on it, so that would be the first problem. Let's do that.
Here's an interesting question that follows in that.
Yeah, you can have a so again, like this is the point. Like I'm doing this widget because we have a specific too, but you just do a for loop, right? Like have as many children as you like. I mean, this is what we've got here, right? Like the layout that I'm doing here is based on the fact that we have these particular widgets with these IDs, and if we don't have them, then it's going to throw an error, right? Like that's what I was saying before. Like there's a way of doing this, which is non-specific, right? If we actually had this laid out, this is dynamic in nature, right? Well, we kind of mix the two. But another way of doing this is just split this up slightly, which is slightly better in the way that we're doing it, which would be let's go backwards a bit here just to show you what I'm talking about. So for our use case is actually we want specific widgets, right? So we're always going to put the constraint on our parent that it requires to have these 3 widgets. So we can actually do widget previous, widget label next. And then what we then do is in our super class, we can then say children is, and we finish our layout off here. In this case, can't have it constant, which is what's complaining around. These are required. And then our previous widget goes in here. It all goes in here. So the specifics of what the child is, we don't know, but we do know that we need, for our layout to work, our custom layout to work, we're going to need those layout IDs in there, right? So that's really the correct way of approaching this problem. So that way, the outside of our widget supplies these particular things. It's not dynamic in nature. And then what's on the inside of those things. But again, like as you just saw, we get children from ID map. We're not limiting it. This will just go through all the children that are in the layout and get them. But again, we don't even have to use layout IDs. You can just go get them by position. The first child, get the first child. Get last child, get the last one. There's a last child as well. In fact, there's get children as list, which is probably what you're looking for. So get children as list, and that's part of the container mixin, I think it is one of these mixins, and it just has a nice little looping, just grabs you all the render objects, which is quite handy. It's the defaults one. It's in render container defaults is the one that supplies that. But anyway, right, where was I? We're going to try and do this layout, right? So we've got our previous and we've got our next laid out. And we've got their sizes. We've calculated the height of our widget based on the size of those. We're going to change the constants of the widget so you can see how it reacts, right? Now, there's got to be a better way, though, than calculating the centers like this, right? Let's get the previous and next in the right place. I think that's the one thing, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to calculate where the label is So if the label became larger, we'd want the buttons to what, center? I mean, here's a question: where would you expect these buttons to be in the layout? I think centered on either side of the 2/3. Would that be what? Would you think, Randall? I mean, we can just do something like this. Like, here's a good example of what things you can do, right? We could say width minus 10, well, minus previous size dot width. Let me just show you just like some sort of simple out. What we don't have is we haven't got width. Hang on. Constraints. Max height.
There's a
Well, I mean, like,
centered, whatever that means. Yeah.
What I want to do here is just kind of define that. Actually, I define it with the height. That makes more sense, I guess. So that's better. Just so we kind of no. So if I run this, there you go. Look, there's next to previous. Wrong way round.
Close.
Let's swap them around.
I'd just change the keys. I'd make next and previous.
Well,
swap it around.
Yeah.
Either way, you're doing it right the way. You're going left or right still. In theory.
Right. Anyway, let's restart. And there you go. Previous and next. Now they're both the same width. So here's a crazy thing. If I go up here to our text widgets now, and I'll say previous blah and hit save.
Oh. Why did that happen?
Because I've given it the height of the widget, and this is not single, and this is not single line. So if this was max lines 1, it's behaving correctly.
Yeah, it is.
So if we did this and said 1, 2, 3, now they're both going to grow in size.
Yep.
Right. Without going into detail, if we don't want the widgets to do this, this is wrapped here, which is quite interesting actually. That effect. I don't know if it will. Yeah, like that, right? So this is because we've given them. They can be. You can see they now. If one's bigger, it'll just keep going, right? Because what we said is, I didn't tell them to center vertically, right? So that's why that's not center vertically. And I just told them to be 10 from the edges, from the left and right edge. So this is the kind of reaction that we're getting right now. I think there's. I put 10 on it. Why did I? No, I'm not sure. I think this is one of those things where it works out that there's a margin or whatever. I can't remember how elevate bump works, but anyway.
I got about 10 more minutes and I gotta go. So
all right, well, we'll finish this up in 10 minutes and then I think we'll call it.
Cool.
On that one. Sorry, we got a bit longer than I thought. Anyway, so let's sort this out. So when we get that intrinsic width, we're giving it a height. So I wonder what happens if we say you don't have a height. Does that make any difference at all?
No.
Or am I getting max? This might be the other intrinsic dimension I might be forgetting. Get max intrinsic width. Oh, wait, for a height of 0. I'm trying to remember what it is now. It's gonna. Oh, this is max for a second, and we'll see what we get. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, well, I mean, that's expected, actually, because it's so long now. So let's shorten it down and see what we get. Yeah, there you go. That worked. Cool. So if I add some stuff to previous blah and hit save, yeah, they both get one. There you go. There you go. So if this one's larger now, they both get larger.
Yep. Nice.
And they both stay on one line. Yeah. So okay. So this is one thing, but yeah, and as I said, like if we had this like new line 1, 2, 3, new line 4, 5, 6. Let's just do that to simulate a weirdness in the layout. Let's do a text line center. Okay, so you know this one ideally you want vertically center. Also, what is this? 10 from the edge. I mean, I've made that up, but obviously you'd be better off not putting that in this widget, right? And instead, that can go on the outside. So you'd wrap your widget in a padding.
Yeah.
If you wanted to achieve something in from the edges, so we would actually wrap our wizard buttons in a padding. This is composition over inheritance, basically. Like we know every custom widget doesn't get its magical thing, right? Okay, and then let's just do horizontal symmetric. Let's be clear about that. Right. So the other side of this was vertical sizing and all this kind of positioning. There is actually an easy way of doing this. So rather than having to calculate this, there is actually a we can build a rectangle. So we can say final rect equals size. Offset 0 and size width height. So this is so offset has an operator override that lets you specify a what's the base type thing? Offset base. Yeah. And what this means is at the out of this, you actually get a rect object. And that's a rectangle based on that start position top left, offset 0, and the size of width and height. And now we've got that. There's actually some things you can do. Scribe, I think is being one, if I remember rightly. Scribe, something like that. I don't see it in there. Oh yeah, no, alignment. So if we want to say, if we want to center something, we say alignment dot center scribe inscribe. That's the one. Inscribe into a rectangle. This size, and this would be our label size. What we've just done, if I put this down below, is this is going to return back the position to center rectangle label size of content inside of the rectangle, and it returns back the new rectangle. So based on that, we want to get that new rectangle's top left. That now becomes our position that we can position our widget. So if I pop that in here, we'll get rid of our size.
I was going to say there's got to be some computation you can make with alignment and stuff to be able to just do that automatically instead of doing all the math. Every time I see all the explicit math, people putting sines and cosines in and scaling things, so it's like there are operators for these. There are already built-in constructs. This is the kind of stuff you're doing frequently when you're dealing with pixel dimensions and everything.
There you go. Well, oh yeah, because I put label size, not previous size. So this is previous size, and this one is next size. We'll get that right. That'll be fine. There we go.
Yeah,
now they're centered in vertically, and no matter which one would be bigger, they would center correctly. So if I was to go and do some new lines in here, 1, 2, 3, whatever. There you go.
Yeah, cool. Oh, not the same size anymore. Oh, no,
sorry?
Why aren't they the same size?
They are the same width. Yeah.
Oh, same width. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
All right. I was thinking same height.
So if I make this one wider, they both get wider.
Sure.
So yeah. So now the height thing was just to kind of test like how they center, because
sure,
I don't know, you might have different fonts or some other different content. Remember, these are just widgets. They might not be buttons. They could be icons. But yeah, there you go. Look, so same buttons either side. So it's a nice little like example of this kind of layout problem and how you address them. Not enough people are doing these custom layouts. This is so much more efficient, so much more effective in your layout than it is to do a bunch of these other things, right? It does take a little bit more doing. I do agree, but the end result.
And people coming to this from like web layout probably don't think of the fact that we really have really low level controls here. So you can get an exact layout
But
that
this
you
is
can
it.
reuse now. You
I'll
can
be
reuse
honest with
this
you.
in your whole design.
This is the other thing about this, right? Think about how optimal this is. It does exactly what we've asked it to do. Whereas if you go with like CSS or with all these other things, even using multiple widgets in Flutter when you have to compose it, suddenly you get all these layout constraints and all these things passing back and forth. You've got a lot more complications around just performing the layout when it could have been done directly. And that's the thing that I see a lot. People try and combine all these widgets with all these different properties to kind of achieve something when it's like, do the layout yourself. That's where the custom layout stuff comes in.
Right.
So I will yeah.
Let's
So
ship this.
I think that's it.
Ship
And we'll
this.
ship
We can get
this.
out of here. Yeah. Okay.
And then we'll get out of here and we'll call it. We will be back. I will be back. I will send out a tweet. So follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at DevAngels London. There you go.
On X. No,
it's Twitter. It's still Twitter to me. I'm old
it's
school.
X.
No. All my
you don't
links
have
Twitter.
tweets. You don't have tweets. You have excretions. One of my hosts sometimes says.
Yeah. What else do we have?
I'll be here next week too. If we're doing a show next week, I'll be here.
Yeah,
I'm
think
good to that. I'm not going anywhere on foot, so I'm fine.
I think it would be fun to make some games. I want to make over Christmas. I want to make 2 games. I want to make 2 games over Christmas. That's my challenge to myself. Full games, proper games. I might even launch them in the stores.
And I want to introduce some FP Dart into these live demos too. It sounds like there's some interest for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's do that.
Right, we're calling this wizard buttons, yeah? All right.
Go.
Wizard buttons.
Okay.
Right, that is...
I got an appointment with a nurse coming shortly so that I can get my vacuum pump that's attached to my side right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I can finally take a shower after all these days.
All right. That's enough information, please.
Shut up, Randall. And again,
just do that.
Yeah. Anybody come in the last minute? Yeah, I'm healthy, happy. I'm in no pain. I'm walking with a walker. I did 645 steps yesterday, so I'm that's actually about what I was doing anyway. So I'm probably already back to normal in terms of that. But looking forward to the time I can drive my 6-shift car once again and go down the 11 steps to my underground bunker, my secret underground bunker, which is where I've been for all these other shows that I've done here. So right now I'm in my cousin's place, and he's all on a flat, so I can actually get somewhere. Anyway,
the link is in the chat for those that are interested in the custom show. It is custom code, custom layout. So there it is there.
Sorry we didn't get to the other gist earlier. Come back next week and ask that again, and we'll take it on next week.
I've got it on my list right here, and we will definitely get to that. It is on the next one on my list. So
happy holidays, happy Festivus,
happy holidays, happy season,
happy Christmas,
whatever.
Kwanzaa, all those one of these. Yep.
We'll see you. We'll post again. Follow us on Twitter. Follow the Flutter community on Twitter, and we'll be posting out tweets once we've got confirmed times for next week. All right.
Sure.
Cheers, everyone.
All righty.
Bye.
Ciao.
Here's the button.